Justin. Welcome. We've been talking online for a bit. We've been kind of interacting. We have some weird links,
Yeah.
specifically just life path links. And it's interesting. Every now and then I have people here, like we've had career criminals, we have reformed criminals, we've had conjurers, healers, police officers, members of special force. We've had all types here. And there's a lot of commonalities, a lot as far as like how their lives progress. It's just different choices, Sometimes we choose different teams to join. With you, like we'll get to what you're doing now, but like it's interesting to talk about how you got there, right? This whole process. Where were you born?
I was born in West Fargo, North Dakota.
West Fargo, which
Yeah.
is how eventful is West Fargo?
So not super eventful. It's pretty small. It's growing now. It's pretty decent size. But
Yeah.
growing up, I mean, we still had dirt roads out to the mall, and you could just walk like your kids. You could be gone for all day. 10 years old, walk to the mall and just do your thing and walk back. And your parents never knew where you were or what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us that grew. What year were you born?
96. Or I'm sorry, 1977.
77.
Yeah, 77.
I'm from '82 in Mexico, so like we still had a little bit of that, just fucking. I'm just gonna go walk, and
Yeah.
nobody knows. What about your parents?
So my mom separated from my dad and was a single mother for quite some time.
Single parent household
Yep,
type
yep.
setting in the '70s. Like this is. You talk about disintegration of families and stuff like that within the United States. Like we as Mexicans are experiencing that probably in the '90s.
Okay.
But you guys in the U.S. have been experiencing this whole divorce proliferation of like separation and stuff like that in the '70s. So
Yep.
single mom,
Single-
household.
Yep. We lived in an apartment. I had grandparents that stepped up to try to help me. I mean, she had some things going on and was, did her best to be a mom, looked out for me and was a good woman, just overwhelmed, I think.
Yeah. Grandparents are fucking great.
Yeah.
Like we've talked a bit about your grandfather was a knife maker or like knew about knife making.
Yep.
Was that something that he did with you, like shared with you during that time when you were kind of growing up?
Yeah. He was a career military guy and then got out. He served in World War II, saw a few things, and hard man.
Yeah.
Real hard man, but good man. I mean, good-hearted. Not a lot of fucking around.
Yeah.
Sorry, not a lot of messing around.
Yeah. A square.
Yeah.
Square. He was a square.
Yeah.
Like people that work with their hands and stuff like that. It's interesting. Like a lot of knife makers that I know, or a lot of people that gunsmithing and stuff like that. That's usually a way for them to contain themselves. This whole aspect of like, it makes sense. He was a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
We look for ways of occupying ourselves.
Forever moving, looking forward, never off to the side.
Yeah, that's a whole, like, for me, that's where I got the whole stillness is death aspect of my kind of like personal philosophy. This, don't dwell on shit because that's going to sink you.
Don't open the door. Don't even open the door.
Yeah. No, you don't want to sit with yourself for too much.
No.
So you're a kid growing up in this, your dad's just completely not in the picture.
No, he at the time was in the grips of pretty aggressive alcoholism and led kind of a rough life. Just never there, never around, never showed up for anything, never like birthdays and none of it,
And I ask because like it's amazing to me. Like I've met a few people that have no father figure in their lives, like as men, and they're fucking manly fucking motherfuckers.
Yeah.
It's almost like they find these ideals about what men should be, and they adapt them from various people, and they become these fucking. Like I don't say they overdo it, but like we become something.
No, you overdo it. I mean, you don't have to pussyfoot around that. There's, you have that what I should be idea.
Yeah.
And you push that narrative your whole life to yourself, and then people start to believe it, and you believe it.
Now, when you're a kid and like growing up like that without that in your life, are you like, where are you? Where are you getting your examples?
So from my grandpa, I had a West Fargo police officer that, saw that I was struggling, and he knew my mom and he knew my biological dad. And he kind of, took me fishing, took me hunting, like took me on ride-alongs, was
What was his name?
Donnie Loberg. Great man. He's a retired cop in West Fargo.
Let's it's those like I was trying to like mention this over and over again. Like we change the world one person at a time, one moment at a time. So like that's cool that he did that. Like why? Like he's
Just a good man. I think he saw it. Like he knew my dad, he knew my mom, and he saw that like my childhood I describe as like running in sand. You're in the thick of it all the time,
Yeah.
and there's no uniformity. I mean, there's no congruity in your life and like where you're staying that night. I stayed at a lot of friends' house. I made some really good friends that, their parents kind of stepped up and helped too. And, my grandfather was an amazing, amazing man, but like he had no idea how to deal with me. Like
Yeah.
I was lost.
yeah. Like when you say you were like when you're behavior wise, like,
Yeah, my behavior sucked. I was terrible in school. Man, I struggled to even graduate from high school. Like just showing up, I'm skipped so many days of being sick or pretending to be sick or anxiety that went with that. There was no, I couldn't find peace. Like that was my big thing. Like just find some peace, some semblance of that.
you mentioned your mother was struggling. Like,
So
substances.
yeah, she she always drank. She was a hairdresser, and like they work hard. You're on your feet all day, 24 hours constantly. There's no retirement for that. There's no, and she had struggled with her weight and some other things, and had taken some this pill called Fen to lose weight,
Yeah.
and it changed her. Like it changed her whole person. Like she became an alcoholic, addicted to pills. Like
it snowballs for people, specifically with like any substance. It just snowballs.
yeah, and it doesn't stop until you're done. I mean, until you're shut off.
Like when you're a kid and you're seeing your mother kind of like progress into this. Like, are you trying to keep her from it? Are you aware of it? Is it she's passing out next to you, like with you there? Like what are the feelings around that when you're growing up with that around you?
You find like the cigarette burns on like blankets around your house, and I was a little older when she got into like her real throes of addiction. So I was, I was 17, 18 when things started really going south for her. And I just remember sitting with her and she was talking and like asleep with a cigarette in her hand, and it was like burning her hand. And I mean, those memories, they don't go away.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much the physical abuse as the like just knowing that you can't fix that for her, for somebody that like brought you into this world and looked out for you, and you can't fix that.
Are you seeing this idealized form of what it should be on like TV or with your friends around you, and you're like, why don't I? Why isn't it the same here?
Yeah, like what did I do to end up with this? And my mom had remarried, and that's where like my last name came from. He adopted me. That's not my original last name, and that dude is just as big of a piece of shit as my dad was. I mean, he just wasn't a good human.
Yeah, I've read this recently where like one of the biggest indicators for abuse within a household when it comes to children is step parents.
Yeah.
It's the biggest one of all. Like you would think like substances or past issues of trauma, step parents.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about, right?
Like your mom brought this person into the house, you're like, this isn't safe for me.
There's something about having, it's like an unspoken conflict when somebody comes into a house and there's like a tension now, and you're a product of a previous marriage or relationship, and now you're It's like it's weird.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic, and it's hard to navigate when you're a kid because you're torn in a couple directions. You know, you want a father figure and you want to look up to him, and they're just not somebody that you should look up to. You know,
Yeah. Is it? You say he was a piece of shit. Like, was he being?
just abusive, verbally abusive, physically abusive. Just not a you know, cheated on my mom constantly, like stealing. Just like you check the boxes. You just go down the list of things that like you do not want to do. You know, and I think that's what like, you know, we talk about an origin story a little bit, that like I don't want the other kids to see that. Like I want to be the, I don't want to say demon, but like I want to be the thing that's in between that dude and a kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Anger.
anger and frustration and fear, like fear in wrong places.
Yeah. For me, it was like this impotence. Like I couldn't do anything about. It's like my mother went kind of psychiatric after my brother died, and it was like seeing somebody being set on fire slowly, you know, and like you can't do anything about it, and you're like, hey, pouring water on you, like, and they would continue setting the fire on their feet.
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
Yeah. And that, for me, like it produced a lot of escapism.
Oh,
Yeah.
tons.
So movies, comic books, like people are sometimes like, where do you get all your weird musical taste and shit like that? It's that. It was like that was where I would escape: music, film, stuff like that. Like, where would you escape?
Law enforcement, man. Like
That was-
I ate, drink, like breathe that shit. Like I wanted to be a cop so bad.
What? And you said you had a mentor figure that would kind of like show you what that was.
Yep.
But in your mind, like, what were you aiming at as a kid, like as far as law enforcement?
Probably Axel Foley from Beverly Hills Cop, man.
Yeah,
That was my
That's a pretty good one.
yeah, that's like, and it ended that way. Like I get yelled at a lot by the chief, and you know, but
Yeah, shoot out.
oh yeah, constantly.
But you're that's your form. That's where you're escaping to in your mind
Yep,
as a kid.
movies and music, tons of movies and music.
You're doing horrible in school,
Yeah,
which is also tracking.
yeah, yeah. Barely like making it. I think like a week before my senior graduation, my history teacher called my mom and said, "Kathy, you can order the buns. Like he's gonna pass, but barely." Like it was very, very like touch and go for quite a while.
Yeah. And are you like? I recently had my ADHD diagnosis, like
Yeah.
at 42, at 41,
Yeah,
which was like,
it's a fucking superpower, man. Like
but
it is.
It is, but in a lot of ways, when I got that diagnosis, I went into grief
Okay.
because I then remembered back on all the times that I could have been maybe not even with medication, just by awareness of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've detected that in people around me, and I'm like, oh, cool, this guy needs reminding of this nature, or this guy or this kid just needs this, right? I didn't have any of that. I was, and also like I went through a few religious schools, so I got fucking, the nuns were pretty brutal, right? For me, there was a period of grief throughout because it was, there was a lot of things that I wish could have been done or like changed. Like I don't know if you had some of that going on. Probably did. It is a super. I get the whole superpower aspect of it, but man, it's like it's when you're a kid and that's there and there's no structure around it. You're just bad.
Yeah.
You're just lazy. You're just distracted. You don't care, which is, I think, out of all the things that were said to me, it's like, you just don't care. That's why you don't remember, or that's why you don't follow through with shit.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, I had different teachers, pull me aside and be like, you're never going to get to be a cop if you don't do this. Well, that was a great motivator for me because all of a sudden, like that ADHD brain kicked in. It's like, oh, this is a means to an end. Like all of a sudden, I'm really good at like history and math and shit because I know that this is what's going to help me get to drive fast in a car and point guns and be wild, you know,
Yeah.
and have a purpose.
Yeah. This perfectly stated at the end, purpose.
Yes.
I guess I remember finding like, oh, you can have a purpose, you know? Holy shit. So you're trying to figure out purpose for yourself in law enforcement as like a end goal.
Yes.
How did you get there? Like after fucking barely making it through high school, having this complex childhood, people coming in and out, and basically the way you kind of like talk about it, you were pretty much raising yourself in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like how do you go from that? Like most people that I've talked to that have that whole child experience, they usually figure out that the secret ingredient of success is crime. You know, that's the secret is crime. Some people do that. You know, like I did that for myself. I got my independence probably at 13 or 14 myself. When I say independence, I mean there was nobody home.
Yeah.
So I had to figure shit out, and I did some shit.
Yeah.
But like for you, like how do you go, like how do you structure yourself to go from this chaotic environment into, you know, some people go to the military, and we had some people in Iran that went that route, but like going into police work and going into that type of environment, that's a very structured environment, which is completely outside of the norm of where you're coming from. So like, I know it's a fucking...
It was a mess. Like it was hard. So the only thing that I found that gave me structure in life at that time was art. And it was like a means to an end, and I got pretty good at it. I mean, obviously I built a business off of it now, but like that gave me...
What type of art?
Just drawing, painting, our gun grips, our knife handles,
I used to draw flyers for my band.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because again, and for me, it was the only way I could concentrate on something.
And this teacher had said, try art. And I kind of laughed at her, and I was, I'm actually really good friends with an art teacher that I had in high school that used to kick me out of class for smoking weed or for like just being an all around pain. And I ended up actually, like she lives in the community that I live in now. And I had an interaction with her, and she's like, Dustin, you're a cop? Like, yeah, they were hiring. And I showed up like she couldn't believe it. It baffled. It was just, she still jokes about it. Like there's no way.
There's no way. Yeah. I had a lot of that. It's for me, it was, realizing that, I can sustain that form of living into my adult life. There was like a weird moment where I was like, hey, fencing shit that I stole and running around and doing all this shit and having this weird fucking hair and stuff like that. It's going to work for me till I'm probably like 20, and then it's gone. So I had to make a dramatic choice. But you were kind of aiming at that.
I was. And, again, to go back to my grandfather, like I bounced around a lot, but I always had that, like, that rock, like if I needed a hot meal or if I needed a place to sleep where it was just quiet and I didn't have any drama, like I always had that to fall back on. I tried not to because I didn't want to look weak. I didn't want to, even as a kid, you don't want to look weak.
Where do you get that not looking weak thing? That was shown to you? Who showed you that?
Myself. Like I knew that I didn't want to be like I didn't want to be like a little kid anymore. I didn't want somebody to be able to push me around. I didn't want somebody to be able to like tell me what to do. So I was like, oh, I can't look weak. I have to look like, you build yourself up. That's how you end up with, or for me anyway, like tons of tattoos and a beard, and you make yourself unapproachable almost.
Yeah.
So, and then the structure came from, going to Alec Tech, the 2-year law enforcement academy. Like we wore uniforms every day, and we had We had to be there at a certain time, and if we weren't there, they came and got you.
What's that? What's the name of that?
Alexandria Technical College. It's a law enforcement academy in Minnesota for 2 years.
Is it like a? I mean, the way you're describing it, like, and I've been to a few U.S. law enforcement academies in Texas and other parts. It's always wild to me. Like, my experience was completely different. It was a paramilitary institution training thing in a refurbished prison, and they treated us like fucking dog shit.
Oh man.
But and also, like, there was some pretty great stuff around it, but like the professionalism and some of the ways they're forming cops in the U.S. has been fascinating to me. Also, being fascinating how a lot of that shit is going away and standards are being lowered and shit is just being expedited.
Yeah, that's
You
all
say
trash.
2 years.
Yep.
Is there anything like that now?
Yeah, they have. You leave with an Associate of Applied Science degree, and you wear uniforms every day. They
How are you maintaining yourself as you're going through this process of 2 years to go into this? And also, like, what's that fucking? I mean, I remember when I got my first day where I couldn't decide what I was gonna do for a day when my head was shaven and I was treated like like a Roman fucking soldier for a bit. Like I was like, it was shocking to my nervous system.
Yeah, I started drinking pretty heavily. The drinking it got way worse after I like started seeing a few things, but like as you're 18, 19, 20, like I tried to, I put on a good show. Like I worked part-time in the hospital doing security and while I was going to school but
What
it
was
booze,
What was it? Like beer?
anything I could get my hands on.
Really? You were like
no,
an all encompassing.
like if it was on the table, I'd drink it.
Were you looking for euphoria or were you looking for an off button?
Just an off button. Just
Yeah.
peace.
It would,
Always looking for peace.
what people don't realize or might not understand about that. I mean, I don't know if you have an ADHD diagnosis or like also just the trauma that you went through and just being constantly on and the survival mode aspect of.
Yeah,
Especially as a kid.
I have ADHD. But it's pretty clear. Like,
But like an off button or peace, people don't understand what that might mean for some people because some people might like, hey Ed, just take some vacation time, just
yeah, that's
chill out.
nonsense.
It's like take some vacation time from my fucking self. Like, it's hard to like shut that off. Some people drink socially, and that's one thing. I'm just gonna have some fun with my friends. It's gonna be euphoric. You have Avi here who produces the show, and me and him would how many kawamas we would drink. Like, we would just get shit faced, but like I would see in them that it was euphoric. Like they like when I was drinking with Avi and our friends, they would be like having fun, and I was like, I would leave the party, and then I would be like, I have to keep drinking because I have to shut my head off. And I thought it was like maybe I'm fucking weird, or maybe I'm not just, I don't know. Like I rode that euphoric wave for a bit. But then I wanted to ride that wave into the fucking ground and just fucking get shit faced so I could fall asleep.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Like I am the type of alcoholic that doesn't have to drink, but if I do drink, there's no off button. Like it would never stop. So, I mean, I would drink for like on a weekend from Friday until like Sunday afternoon if I had to. And at the time I was trying to navigate a relationship that was, like an hour away, and you throw yourself into whoever gives you attention at the time.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Well, why not? Women, they, I don't know, for me, realize that like some of the shit that I went through, it was all about abandonment and just being cast out or cast aside. So I was always trying to figure out somebody that I could be essential to,
Yeah.
like if I could find somebody who I'm essential to, I mean, I'm good.
Yep. That was my like,
If they're on
shining
fire
light.
and I have to like put water on them constantly, and if they're setting themselves on fire constantly, then I could do that again. I'm set. But these people were pretty bad.
Yeah, I know. That's, and I had, she's a great woman. Like she's got a good life now. And like, but I still think about like, fumbling the football at the 10-yard line. We ended up getting married like a couple years down the road from that. And I mean, that lasted like 9 months. Like she saw the real me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't great.
Shit, yeah. When you say the real you, I mean, she saw the things that you would do when you were on your own. Or
She saw like the fear of a little boy constantly, like constant trauma, constant like, hey, this is not a man. This is not how men act. Like this dude's got some shit going on.
yeah.
It wasn't behavior so much as like just unnecessary fear.
Yeah.
Of the unknown and of things that would
A constant state of anxiety and a looking into the future or the past and not being able to be present
Correct, yeah.
is what my therapist fucking gave me.
my favorite saying from this Warrior Path program I went through is be present where your feet are.
Yeah.
Like you are right here, right now.
Yeah.
And that's brought me back. Like, I mean, a lot.
Yeah. The whole be present thing. Yeah. I got that from a Bufo trip. We'll talk about that if you want.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Mike Tyson did one. And weird thing, like we just, damn, man, it's pretty sad seeing him now. But he's pretty, like, the guy was, Mike Tyson is an enlightened man.
Mm-hmm.
He did Bufo. And it's interesting. He's like, he describes it as one of the most powerful experiences he's ever had. And, like going through my process of trying to figure my shit out. Like it's, you know, we're like, I was in my late 30s or early 40s. And, you know, I saw this vision of something, right? In this trip. And I had a question from whatever this is. It could be something internal, you know? It's like I've had some wild fucking dreams and lucid dreaming is an after effect of substance abuse for years. Like after you let go of that, you have some of the wildest fucking dreams. I had this entity show up in my dream, in my vision. I don't know what it was. Probably vision, you know. What's the only eternal thing that we as human beings can comprehend? Was the question that this entity posed. After a long-ass silence in this fucking vision, I felt a hand reach over and touch my heart. Now, Ed, it's always going to be now. And I'm back. That was the secret that I was given to me by fucking drugs. Being present. And as you're going through this process, I remember, like, even when I was going through my own training, my mind was like, what's going to happen when I get out? Fuck all the shit that happened before. But I couldn't be, like, I couldn't enjoy, like, I would have some amazing victories, personal victories of all kinds, and they didn't matter.
No, they never do.
Yeah. So you're going through this 2-year process to become structured because they're showing you structure, basically, right? Like, what are the growing pains of structure? And you're like, how are you dealing with structure?
Getting arrested a week before I graduated from the police academy at a blood alcohol level of like a 0.17.
Fuck.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
We were having a party and a buddy had called and he's like, hey, can you bring those girls that are down visiting you over? And I'm like, yep. And so we got in the car and everybody had drinks. And I don't know why I got in the car that day because I was terribly against drunk driving, obviously. Like 2 years of law enforcement academy, you know, they show you the videos of blood on the highway and like all those.
We're Mexican. We drunk drive all the time. We didn't give a shit. But yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I was going to end up going to St. Cloud State and finishing my 4-year and working part-time as a community service officer in St. Cloud. And I was fired from that before I even got out of jail.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Now, is that an ending? Like, what do you go, like, what's going through your mind as far as that? You're not even starting and you're already ending in that.
Yeah, it was 2 years of like, hey, I did it. I passed this. I showed up. I'm fucking going to be something. I'm going to be a man.
I think you're setting that shit on fire.
Yeah, I just self-destructive behavior, man. Like I remember waking up in the jail cell and there was a guy next to me like picking wood ticks off his head and they were like going down the drain. And I remember thinking, what have I done?
We had somebody on here, a SEAL, who then went off and joined the Foreign Legion because that's what people with our fucking head issues do. He described like he went into fentanyl and some other hardcore shit. For me, every now and then I was in a position where I was like really privileged and I worked hard to be there. And then somebody would say like, it's be a good idea to drink this whole bottle of tequila and go off and shoot an AR into the ocean full auto.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a good idea.
No.
But something in you, it's like a momentum. Like a car just go.
It just feeds on itself. It's like a wave of self-destruction.
Yeah, and then just having somebody who doesn't have all these issues tell you, like, what the fuck are you thinking? Are you an idiot? Are you stupid? Like, dude, don't you realize? It's like, we do realize all this shit, but there's something in us that does. There's no
no
fucking handbrake.
Yeah, there's no punch out button. You can't get out. Like you're just along for the ride at that point.
How do you get out of that? Like, how did you go through that? Like, how do you make it to the other side from that?
Just not fucking giving up, man. Like I had the next week I had to have a friend give me a ride because, like my license was suspended at that point. When I took my police license exam, I was like on conditions of release. And I remember sitting in class and like going to take the police exam, and this guy that I went to school with, who was always kind of a douche, he's like, why are you even taking this? You're not going to get to ever be a cop. And I'm like, that's a pretty good motivator. Like, I'll show you, dude. Like, I'm going to show you I'm going to be a cop just so I can prove you wrong.
Yeah, they activated that part of you.
Yep. And so then I just put my head down and try to stay out of trouble. I pled guilty to the charges, and they said, you don't do anything for a year and you can go have your life back. And that's what I did. I focused the beam for a year, and I did construction, and I knew I didn't ever want to do that again. Like those guys work hard.
Yeah, because
that sucked. And my buddy called me up and he's like, hey, you off probation yet? We're hiring in the prison.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, man, right on. I'm on my way. And I just loaded everything up and applied, and they're like, well, you haven't been in jail for a year. Welcome aboard.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. You're good. You're fixed.
You're fixed. You go to work into the prison system.
Yep.
What type of prison?
Private for profit prison in Minnesota. Yep.
Well, you're in there. I mean, you've already been in one. Like, well, you've been in jail.
Yeah.
Prison and jail are not the same.
No, they're not. Never convicted.
That Trump should say that as his inauguration. You have this experience where that's your second chance, I guess, right?
Like 14th or 15th chance, but yeah.
Yeah. Is it? Are you coming into that job with a let's see what happens, or like, let me prove myself?
I wanted to go in and like instantly prove myself, which when you work in a prison, that's not the way to approach that at all. Like you learn quick that's not right.
Yeah. Because
you're not going to prove shit to those guys. They don't care.
They don't care. You're an enemy, and also you're outnumbered.
Yep.
What do you gain from that experience in there? Are you like, is that helping you grow? Is that helping you slow down? Like, you're in a box with people that don't want to be there. You probably don't want to be there too, but you're there at least earning a check, and you can leave home at night.
Yeah.
Was that showing you?
You learn real quick like how to talk to people, and like your mouth is the only thing that's keeping you alive at that point, and how you treat people. I learned that, like, I had this view that all law enforcement is fair and honest, and like that went out the window in a hurry because I'd only been exposed to like good cops. West Fargo had great guys there, great guys and gals there, and they cared about their community. And now I'm working in a prison with a private prison that they'll hire. Well, they hired me. I was in jail a year ago. You have people that are Minnesota, small town, like easily inmate gamed, easily corrupted, because they have no idea.
Are you seeing that when you're in there?
Like, huge. Yeah. One of the guys on our SORT team was bringing in drugs. We lived in a town with a population of like 3,000 or 4,000 people, and like 2,800 of them were either inmates' families or COs' families. So it was like,
It was all intermingled. So there's
yeah, it
no
was
way.
just prison people and COs, like people that are in and the guards.
Yeah. Some people will go into that situation and like realize that's the normal and that's what you should do.
Oh, absolutely not. No,
What kept you from going down that path? I mean, you're like, this is a question it's always get posed to me. Like I was a shit show before I went in, but when I was in, I was surrounded by a lot of corruption, people doing shit and stuff like that, and I was a piece of shit to myself, but not to others.
yeah.
And I kept myself honest for a lot of reasons, but most of it was related to the fact that I didn't want to fucking get put into a hole. And I didn't want to be owned by anybody because I'm a fucking anarchist. Like I don't want any of that for myself. Like what's keeping you from going down that route?
You know, people have asked me that before, and the best thing that ever happened to me was going to jail. Like I thank God that happened, because that made me realize that I don't ever want to be in there again. Like I don't want to be incarcerated. I don't want any part of that.
It worked.
It worked. It did work. It scared the shit out of me. Like, you know, they say scared straight or whatever, but like that was, you know, I want to say my lowest, but it was my lowest at that time.
Yeah.
There was many lows down the road that I got to navigate.
Episode 1.
Yeah, it wasn't even episode 1. It was like a preface to a nightmare. But you know, that made me not want to do that. And then, you know, I always go back to like how my grandfather raised me, is like, you be a man, you look people in the eye, you shake their hands, you be good, you do good things, you sacrifice for your country, and then you go off into the sunset and yell at people when you're trying to fix things. Like there's no so yeah.
How long did that last? I mean, that sounds like not the best place for you, and that sounds like another place that you want to escape from.
It was. I wanted out of there bad. I was on nights, you know, and so I had gone to Alec Tech, so I had some what they consider law enforcement experience, which was not law enforcement experience. And so I moved up pretty quick. I got on their prison sort team, you know, doing transports and, you know, seeing that, you know, you could do something decent with your time. But I mean, there was so much corruption in there. I mean, tell stories day in and day out. And then you're also in a place where the people who run it do not give a shit about the inmates. They are a paycheck. They are in there to generate revenue for the correction system.
Now, like you having been in there, like what year was this?
That was in, I believe, 99.
Cool. And this is like a common thing that gets talked about a lot, the privatization of prison systems in the United States and how that's fucked.
It is. It's beyond fucked.
And it's become like California has a lot of that going on, apparently. Like I mean, you've lived through it, you know? It's a bad thing, right? Privatization.
Yeah. So think about if you get sick and you fill out a kite or you fill out a slip to ask to like go see the doctor. There's like 3 or 4 people that are going to look at that slip before you get in to go to the doctor and try to navigate whether they're going to help you or whether you're going to sit. The mental health needs are never addressed. An inmate had tried to crawl over from one yard to another, and he shouldn't have been in there. He was mentally retarded.
Yeah.
And he got cut up in the razor wire, and you know, I saw how that impacted my friends. And I wasn't in that housing unit at the time when that happened, but like I remember thinking, why we said hi to him every day, and I mean he was like the one like little light in that place.
Yeah.
And they just snuffed it out. Like there's no light is not allowed in a prison. Like they'll find a way to crush it. And you know, after I left, there was rumors that my female sergeant was sleeping with the inmates and bringing drugs in, and I mean it happens a lot. They get gamed easy. All the things that like had led up to that, like why I'm searching a housing unit by myself in Alpha Pod while like she's over in B Pod or in another unit. Like, what am I looking for? Like, It's dark in here. Everybody's sleeping. They're getting PO'd that I'm in here making noise. So, things that happen like that, you look at the behaviors of, the COs bringing in dope. They're, I can see it now, but at the time I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want any part of that. Like, I just, like, deep down when I was going through that, like, I still knew that, like, I was a good person, that I cared, even though I didn't care about myself at all. Like, at that point, I from one day to the next, I was surviving, not succeeding or thriving.
There's like that's brings up an interesting point. You can be a total piece of shit to yourself and not love yourself, but there's always like a part of you in there. You could be nice to other people and fucking just go walk the line. You can do both.
You almost feel like you're two people.
Yeah. There's like that separation. Like I posted a quote recently on my Instagram account about, people that feel good about themselves make other people feel good around them. The other way around is the same. People that feel like shit about themselves will make other people feel like shit about themselves. But there's something about like I don't know. And again, this may sound weird or strange, but like I try and make other people feel okay, because it's my way of mattering or having some sort of purpose. If I can make everybody laugh around me, if I can make everybody feel okay and at home or safe and shit like that, I would be fulfilled. But I also feel like shit about myself and I hate myself internally, So like you can have both.
Yep.
What makes you run from that? What's your exit from that? Like,
so that gal that I had talked about when I was in college, I had moved her down there, and she hated it. She saw what it was doing to me. I mean, we would go. They're so shorthanded. We would work, 18-hour shifts sometimes, and she saw that like it was that, and then like the drinking, and she's like, we got to go back to Fargo. So we moved back there, and there were so many things that happened when I was there. I'd gotten drunk at a party and beat up by some farm boys and just left in a ditch, and my mouth writing a check that my ass couldn't cash.
Yeah.
And she saw that was like just darkness growing in me. And then we moved back to Fargo, and I got hired part-time temporary in the jail there because I wanted my police license activated in North Dakota. And they did that. So like it was a means to an end, but it also taught me like there, it was all like good COs and good cops. Like they were vetted, they were trained, they were like good people, like they cared. And then that was the first job that showed me like, hey, like you probably can be a decent person if you try to clone these guys, like try to emulate them, and still not taking any stock in any of my behavior at all.
Yeah.
And that led me to getting out of there safely, because if I stayed, there's no way I would have made it out of there, either by my own hand or theirs.
Yeah.
So
you go back on this path. You're still internally. I imagine in my mind, I'm still a kid. I'm still 13 and internally.
Yep.
You go back on this path to like purpose. Is that what you're searching for?
Yeah, purpose and like who am I? Like I wanted to be a man. Like I wanted to be the guy that people went to. Like you're the guy that knows stuff. You're the guy that's gonna fix this. You be the fixer. You be the like. And later in my career, like I got to be that. So like I got to live that, and it still wasn't enough. It still none of that corrected me.
Yeah. What's the next phase of your law enforcement experience?
So I had applied for the Fargo PD with this gal's brother, and he had gotten hired, and I had gotten hired at the same time, and they found out that like my divorce was final, like my long 9-month marriage. And they're like, yeah, you're not our guy. Like, we can't do that. And I remember sitting in my living room, like, why does this keep happening to me? What did I do to deserve it? I know what I did to deserve it. All my behavior, like I brought it on myself.
Yeah. This whole weird mental aspect of like, oh shit, this is raining on me.
Yeah.
Like it's,
but I'm standing out in the storm of my own volition. Like I'm not going inside.
Why am I
help.
wet? It's like, it's because you're standing in the fucking rain.
Yeah. You did it yourself, dude. I had later in life, I had a sergeant who's still a great friend of mine. He's like, I called him one day and I was just bitching, and he's like, "Well, what did you fucking expect? Like,
Yeah.
you reap what you sow, bro." Like,
Yeah.
so then the Iraq-Afghanistan war was happening, and like a lot of the people that worked in narcotics where I wanted to get in, like, left to go to the military, or they were in the military and got sent. And so I applied for an undercover drug agent position, just like on a whim, you know, like I saw it come over, like dispatch teletext or whatever they call it now. And I never went into dispatch. I never hung out there. Like, it wasn't my scene. The beeping and the noises drove me bonkers. And I remember seeing it and thinking, I could be a drug agent. That'll make a difference. Yeah, that was what the fuck was I thinking? And so I applied, and I think I was the only one that applied, to be honest with you. Like,
You were like, oh man, I'm special. They chose me, and like
literally, and I was the only one that applied. And I was young, man. Like, I think I was like 24, 25, somewhere in there.
what even concept or outside of Beverly Hills Cop, what even concept do you have of what it would take or be like to be a narcotics agent of
None.
that nature?
None.
None.
Not a clue. Like, I knew what an eighth of weed cost on the street at the time, but like, you know, I had no idea the level of dirt merchantry. I mean, I don't know that that's a word, but like, that's a shitty job, man. That's
Yeah.
a tough
It is.
gig.
It is. I mean, you are yourself an addict,
Mhm.
and you're going into a place that is going to be a constant, probably reminder of some of the shit that you experience in your own household.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just keep throwing myself into the fire for no
like
reason.
Yeah, you're setting yourself on fire constantly. Why do I keep getting fucking burned? You go into this realm. Like, what year is this?
This is, I think I went in there in 2002.
Meth, I imagine, is the main thing out there that you're.
Decimating our community.
Yeah, but like, it's like when I was active 2004 on forward, and when I got out, it was like meth, like a lot of meth, Mexican meth, like beautiful, Breaking Bad level,
Yeah, like meth
ultra
ice,
pure,
real nice, yeah.
fucking crystals that you like. Oh, like, are these guys into like Reiki or some shit like that? What
This is a lapidary. Are they going to polish this?
No, this is like a crystal, and it is. I mean, fentanyl is horrible, but meth is so dramatic in how it consumes people. And it's a weird one because you'll see them on it at the start, and they're very productive. You know, you'll see like working and shit like that. For some reason, people like taking shit apart, but they can't put it back together. Is the whole description that I have about meth.
Yep.
You know, if you want to fucking deconstruct a house, fucking get a bunch of meth heads, they'll fucking tear it down. But don't ask them to build it.
Yeah. Nope.
And you would see them go from, you know, I just take it for work, and they'll go and fucking work and do all this shit, and then it starts eating them internally. Their brains. It's like a visual. You can like you see these pictures online of people just going through the process of addiction. How they
Yep.
it's horrible. And then, I got to see that firsthand, like week on week on week, working on some of the shit that I was working on. You could see them being consumed, and it doesn't matter how many times you scream at them, stop, or all the like. I remember this one dude started off working. He was working at a maquiladora, like one of the many manufacturing places here in Baja, and he had 2 kids, and his wife got fucking eaten by it first, but he was like a Christian guy, so he saved himself from it. But he started taking it to just be able to do multiple shifts. He went from that to not knowing where his kids went, like in a month and a half.
Yeah, it's fast.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. It blew through our town like wildfire.
Where was it coming from on your end?
Making it. Everybody was making it. If you had, so it's an agricultural community, so anhydrous ammonia is one of the precursors, is very, very prevalent and easy to obtain. I can't tell you how many nights I spent sitting and watching a big white tank.
Yeah.
Like just in the middle of North Dakota, looking for somebody to come out trying to steal it, and you know that doing the pop bottle method, and I mean they'd throw them in ditches and then just leave them and then come pick them up when they were done. Old farmsteads, anywhere they could find it.
And who's your guide in this world? Like you say you were the only one that probably applied for this job. When you get there, like, what's the room look like? Who's there to receive you in this realm?
So it was just like on TV, the guy who was kind of like the handler of the task force, like was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, like beard, heavy white guy. Very nice man.
Are you getting warnings about it? Like, hey, dude, this isn't for you. You're like, for me, it was like it's always whenever I would get into a group like that or shit like that, it was always like, you're not gonna last. Like this isn't for you. Like warnings about it.
I'm not a high speed guy, so like if I'm the high speed guy in the room, like you there's gonna be problems. So like I mean, I literally had that self realization moment, like no one's coming. Like you're it. Like you're the guy. And you know, they were very, I think my first meeting, they were like, well, here's your stuff. And they handed me this big bag full of like bugs and a badge and our guns and all our tack gear and stuff. And they're like, don't fuck any informants and don't do drugs. Good luck.
Don't fuck any of the informants and don't do drugs.
Yep.
Man, that's pretty easy, right?
Sure. So yeah, and we had it was wild. We would just go out and like look for cases, and we had stopped because of my constant need to drink. I'm like, now I'm undercover, so I can drink at work. Like this is the greatest job in the world.
Yeah.
And
You have
So,
it's part of the camouflage.
yeah, like and so I was like, I'm gonna be this guy. Like I get to drink in the bars. I get to be somebody else. You fake IDs and all your different personas, and
You can hide in it.
yeah, and like and then my buddy Kevin always describes this as like the doom slide, where you thrive on going downhill and you feed on it, and it makes you like more motivated to like be worse, and
Yeah.
that was like, I did some good things and I helped some people, but man, what a mess getting there and through it. Like it was 4 years of just like full speed ahead and damn the torpedoes. Like there was no rhyme or reason. I got hired right away in a bar in a town that they were trying to shut down some meth sales, and I showed up and I'm like, hey, boss, I got hired as a bartender. And his only like response was like, how are we gonna make this work? Like, I don't know, figure it out. Like, you're the boss. I'll be working at the bar like these hours, so I won't be here, and then I would work at the bar undercover, and the bar people had no idea who I was. I mean, they do now, but it was like a wild ride that every day I wanted to get off. Like I had everything that I wanted, and it just kept making me more and more miserable, and
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why.
Yeah, you were trying. You found purpose, but also that's not the piece though.
No, there was a, like me, I was like, there was a missing piece of like, I felt like, first of all, I'm not the type of guy that, like, if I'm your friend, I'm loyal. So I had to get rid of loyalty. Like, you got to make friends with people and fuck them.
Yeah,
Like, and killing that loyalty part of me was hard. Like, you start to think like, okay, these people they're not that bad. They're having like a hard time, or they're,
you start humanizing them.
yeah,
Which is
no, you can't do that. So that made it really hard. And then you get, you start even alienating yourself more from family and friends. Like, we had my granddad's family and my mom's sisters and brother, like, they always try to look out for me, but I mean, it was hard. It was hard for them because I disappeared, like, and I didn't make myself available to them.
Yeah.
I wanted to just, like the old movies where like the undercover cop's laying on the couch with a bottle and a gun and he can't figure out why he's that way. Like, I literally made myself into that without even realizing I was doing it.
Yeah.
And that's no way to live.
No. Having an excuse to just be absent, like I think that for me that was addictive. The whole, like, why didn't you show up for Christmas? Like, oh, I'm working. Like, you have this excuse that you're working, and this whole escapism in a lot of ways. For me, at least, like, they would always use me to play the part of a deportee. That's because I had good English and I could just, pretend that I was from San Diego and I was deported because of some shit, and I could just go into weird places.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole humanity aspect of it is interesting. Like, you can't help but start feeling for some of these people that are around you who, you have commonalities with them. Like, they share some of their dreams and aspirations and hopes, and like you meet some of their kids, and then all of a sudden you show up in the middle of the night at their house with the army. And you're dragging them out. It does something. It kills something in you. Like, there's a pain around that. You're working at bars. You're trying to figure shit out against people. You're Judas.
Yeah. Without the silver at the end. You had
a rope, not silver.
And you're tying it yourself. I mean, it's like you're slowly weaving the rope yourself over time to hang yourself with. We had, my undercover car broke down, and we made it look like, so I got some street cred, like the deputy arrested me for DUI. And like before I was even to the jail, the people at the bar that I worked at were calling to bail me out. And that made me feel like a huge fucking piece of shit. Huge piece of shit. And then you get the officers in there, they're giggling. They're like, oh, you really convinced them? And I'm like, I guess I did.
Yeah. It's, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I had some experiences of that nature. And one Christmas, I remember I was invited over to eat at one of these guys' houses. Like, I met
hard.
Yeah, I met her mom and kids running around, and all of a sudden, you have to drop the axe. And this, I don't know, there's a cost there. Some people don't pay anything. Some people are fucking sociopathic, and they're more lizard, I guess, than monkey.
Yeah.
You know the type.
Yep.
I mean, imagine you encountered some of those types of people in there who were like all about just the fucking goal detachment. They don't give a fuck. It's fine.
Yeah, you see that in law enforcement. You get guys that are just robots, or they're they don't care. There's no human toll to them.
Yeah, different side of the spectrum.
Yeah,
people.
Yeah.
The guilt aspect. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and I got guilt from my mom. So there's it ruins or it tarnishes everything. Something that should be considered a victory,
was never a victory.
Yeah, it
never
just
felt like a victory.
It robs everything of it because
you're a fucking liar.
Yeah,
I mean, you are everything that you wanted to go after, and like you're that.
Yeah. You talk about this whole this persona that you have to basically now turn into. Like I didn't go to any specialized training. They just fucking saw that I had certain talents and certain things that they could utilize, and they would send me off to do things of that nature. There was always whenever I think about that, I remember Reservoir Dogs, which is probably one of my favorite movies.
Yep.
This whole aspect of somebody having to come up with a story of who they like, the story to like gain cred and shit like that. For me, it was this dude that I got to train with, fucking high level dude that I got to train with. And when I say train with, basically I had to apprentice under. Like he would do some of this type of same shit, and he showed me a few things. He taught me like, hey, Ed, do you believe in ninjutsu? Like, it's like, what? The art of ninjutsu. You know, this is Mexico, so we're like into some weird shit apparently. It's like, "Nah, what do you mean, like fucking ninja shit? Like being invisible? Yeah, the art of invisibility. It's like this motherfucker is gonna fuck. He's gonna just troll me, I guess.
Yep.
I'm gonna show you the art of invisibility. He said. We're at this fucking hotel, and he pulls out a lot of Bohemia wheat beer that we have here. It's like a Pilsner beer,
Okay.
strong as fuck. And we start drinking, and I'm like, "Where is this going?" And it's like, "No, you just fucking get drunk as shit." He never reveals the art of ninjutsu or invisibility, you know. And then the next day in the morning, he's like, "Here," and he gives me a coffee with Kahlua in it, or almond flavored tequila.
Okay.
And then I'm like going to take a shower. It's like, no showers, you know? And we go out and walk around for a bit. And he starts fucking pointing out the sights and the sounds and like this and that and explaining how shit works. And then we go eat, you know? And then I want to go back to the hotel and wash my teeth. He's like, no. And then the afternoon hits and I'm like kind of tired and I want to go to sleep and like, perfect. And then he pulls out more beer. We do that for 2 nights. And then, you know, we go out on the 3rd day and I look like shit and I smell like shit. And he says, if they can smell you before they see you, you become invisible.
It's fucking true words, man.
You become invisible. Dude, I felt like, holy shit. I went over to somebody like, hey, like I was going to ask him for direction for some shit. This person looked right fucking through me. Like I wasn't there. I was this fucking disheveled street drunk and I smelled like shit. Didn't want to talk to me. I didn't matter. Wasn't human.
Yeah.
I disappeared. Like it was a weird lesson. This art of fucking ninjutsu. I remember that guy. He I don't know. I fucking no clue where he is now. But the whole aspect of detachment and being able to just do shit and not humanize, like this whole pretending that you're separate. Like he was good at it, and a lot of people that I was working with were good at that. I had to develop a mask, or like I don't know, like I referred to it as a prosthesis, because these people were apparently born with it, and they could go off and do shit and fuck people over and, you know, fucking end somebody's way of sustaining themselves and destroy families and shit like that. But like for me, it was like, fuck.
It eats at you. It never goes away. I mean, you carry that, or I carry that. For me, I carry that with me. Like I had a judge say one time, he's like, you swim in dirty water, you're going to get dirty. Like it always, you're always going to take a little bit of that away from, you know, with you when you leave that situation. And like, he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it was so bad by the end there that like when I wanted to get hired by the city PD to slow my life down a little bit, initially the chief there was like, we're not going to hire you because you're a fucking mess. Like we're going to bring you up to our level.
How were they gauging the fact that you were a mess? Like, what were they basing that judgment off? Yeah.
Oh man, poor decisions. You know, you'd go away to training. I remember going away to training one time, and like you couldn't shut it off. So we went to the bar and got drunk, and like some guy was trying to, like, he just wanted a beer, and he didn't have any money, and he was trying to trade me a joint for it. And I fucking hooked his ass up, hammered.
Fuck.
Yeah, and the guy got like a lot of time, like a year or more
For a joint.
Yeah, and for delivery to an undercover cop.
Oh, that's like aggravating situation.
Well, it was. It wasn't. I don't know that it was aggravating so much as just like there's no fucking way he's gonna get a plea deal out of that. Like that's.
It's just a whole.
And that haunts me, man. Like that guy's life was ruined because I made a shitty decision about
Drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, people talk about cost. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, you can. People usually go through shit like that. Not all of them, but like you'll see people that go through events of that nature. We're always trying to make it up. Like, how do I, Judas Iscariot is like, every now and then I post pictures of Judas. There's an amazing icon that a piece like I think it's an Orthodox icon somewhere in the church somewhere, where it's the apostles, and it's Judas walking out of the room, and his halo gets left behind. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's always like, it gets me every time I see it. The potential for all of us to leave our, potential to become that, and just how easily we can just fucking leave it behind for, talk about silver or recognition.
Oh yeah, I got lots of attaboys for that. Like, way to go, way to clean up the, like, I'm a fucking dirt merchant, man. Like, this is not good.
The celebration or the ego being fed off something like that, and then you realize that it's,
and then at the same time, like, getting wrote up for it too, because you're drunk buying drugs from people, like, in a jurisdiction that's not even yours.
Yeah.
So, like, you get the attaboys, but you also get the, like
what the fuck are you?
What are you fucking like? Why are you're lucky you're alive? Like, I remember sitting in, like, I don't know that my boss had ever met, like, the guy that yelled at me, but he was like his boss's boss or something. And he's like, you've been here like very little time and you're already getting yelled at by, like, the director.
Yeah.
And I remember just sitting in there just hungover and just probably still a little buzzed and just getting screamed at. Like, and then...
What type of drunk were you? Like, when I say that, like...
full of fucking shit.
There's sad drunks. There's happy drunks. I was a bipolar drunk.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be really happy and, like, fucking laughing and dancing, and all of a sudden I would just go into, like, pure fucking grief.
Yeah, it was most of it internalizing, crying, being just a fucking puddle.
Yeah.
But also, like, somebody described it one time, hanging out with me when I drank, like, trying to hold on to water, because, like, you never knew what was going to happen. Like, you never knew, like, what shit show was going to, like, entail. Like, even, and it's been 20 years since I drank, and, like, when I said I was coming down here, they're like, don't bust out evil, Dustin. Like, that's like the joke. But
yeah, you I mean, this obviously this purpose that you were trying to find for yourself in such an environment where it's, I mean, I did the same. Mine lasted 12 years. This environment where you're trying to find purpose and escape, and for me, it was always like, all I have to do is just one more thing, one more year, just finish this one more job, survive this, and then I will receive my reward, or my peace, or somebody's going to show up in my life that is going to just be my rock, just like my friends. Look at him, like I would. Fucking comparison is a poisonous fucking thing.
it is.
I would see friends of mine who were doing kind of the same job, being shitty people, but they were rewarded with amazing lives, that were fucking rocks of women. You just fucking, they'd go bail their guys out, or like they would fucking show up, and maybe one of them would get shot or go to the hospital, and you would go visit them at the hospital, and they were there with their families, just fucking getting taken care of. But then you would be fucking assaulted with an aluminum bat somewhere, knock your teeth out, and you would be at the hospital, and nobody from your side would show up for you. And I would be like, fuck, man, what did I do to deserve this? And it was like a dog chasing its fucking tail.
Every day.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What I mean, that sounds like another prison situation where you're realizing that this isn't the place.
Yeah, it is. I knew it was time.
What happened? that made you like realize this is probably a good time to just fucking leave this?
I wasn't going anywhere. Like, and they had talked about like maybe cutting the task force grants and so on. And then I met I met my daughter's mom, and she was like a social worker trainee. And so I was like, this is somebody that's going to take care of me. Like, this is somebody that cares. This is somebody that like wants to know where I am. And this is somebody that wants me to do better. And, you know, at this point I'd been sober for about a year and a half. And like, she saw that I like still struggled with like a year and a half from that intense drinking isn't a long time to be sober. You know, your emotions start coming back. You start like feeling like a human being after, you know, 2 years.
Yeah. No,
It takes a long time.
I didn't know any of this.
No,
I stopped drinking. The first year was fucking not okay.
No.
Second year, it's for people that don't know this, and I didn't go to 12 steps or like A&A meetings.
Yeah.
Like I have a symbolic sponsor now, like a solid dude. You know, Randy, if you're out there, I love you, dude. He's helping me out. But I didn't have anybody like that. I was like, you know, ADHD, can't count on anybody, you know, have to do everything solo. That's been my whole fucking life.
Yep.
Lock myself in a fucking room and just fucking stop drinking. I'll figure that out. And that's going to be enough. And after that, blue skies and peace and all. No, fuck no.
No, that never came.
And yeah, you described the social worker that is going to rescue you, or it's like she knows, like finding people that kind of know what to call is that you have, you know? Like, remember, like I had a relationship with somebody while I was going through my sobriety, and they would like teach me words like dysregulated.
Yeah.
What? You're dysregulated. Holy shit! What do you mean dysregulated? Like you're whatever's going on internally is. Oh, that's what it's called. You know, or anxiety.
Yeah.
What? What's anxiety? Oh, my constant state of being.
Yeah, that's my drive. I call that my drive. But yeah.
And you start kind of like, yeah, you. I mean, for me, it was like, again, abandonment, kind of like fucking pushed me into. And you start looking for that in people, but you know, it's not always. You're not always ready for it though, you know.
And I wasn't.
Yeah.
No.
Sobriety. I mean, I never say like, "Hey, I'm in and I'm an alcoholic." No, I went through some horrible shit, and I used alcohol for a shit ton of a long time to medicate myself and try to sustain. But I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just a fucking person that's trying to fucking be better.
Yeah.
But for a moment there, you are though. That's like you're like the weird part of your identity, and it's a shitty place. Like, somebody that I know who has gone through that process, who's like long time sobriety. He tells me like, yeah, there's the sobriety from the substance, and then you have to figure out the sobriety from the people that were related to the substance, which is like a multi-layered fucking thing. And also repairing all the shit that brought you to the substance now that you're not drunk. So it's a process. It's a fucking process.
And all the things that like you blocked out with that drinking, like there's nothing to block it out anymore. It's just your own thoughts and your own, you know, and then your memory starts coming back and you start remembering like the shitty things you did drinking. Like,
it's a pause button. I wrote about it like in one of the whole fever dreams things that I write.
Yep.
Or the field notes. That's my journal, like a journal that I keep. And I wrote about this feeling of the first year of sobriety. Again, I went through a bunch of other, like sobriety basically lowered inflammation and made me be able to see the extent of damage that was done. So my divorce and that aspect of me, like, oh, I'm responsible for that.
yeah.
Or just my physical damage and some of the shit that went on. Like, oh, it was me. I did this shit to myself. It wasn't fucking my luck or that God hates me or whatever. or karma or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm doing all this shit myself. It's like I describe it as waking up in an abandoned house, and you're the abandoned house, and like everything's disheveled inside, everything's dirty, like nobody's fucking flushed a toilet for a few years.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of fucking bills outside that you have to pay that you didn't fucking take care of. It's like this abandoned house that you just recently fucking acquired. That's how you feel.
And it was, you know, that she is, you know, a very good person. Like, we're very good friends still, and I've been able to repair some of that relation. You know, I mean, where we can co-parent. You know, my daughter Cadence is a rock star. She's well adjusted, and like, thank God I got to the point where I am now, where I'm the man around her that I knew that I could be and that I want to be. But I mean, that's only been that way for probably a year and a half.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty,
Yeah.
you know, where I can take stock and, like, I can pull her aside and say, you know, Dad's emotions were not correct in this.
How old is she now?
16.
Now, like, it's interesting you asked that. Like, for me, it was like, I have a 10-year-old. And you met. She's around. She's great.
Yeah.
There was moments like that when I was going through that process where I know I wasn't the greatest person or the greatest dad,
Yeah.
you know? And I ask her, like, every now and then I'll break down and I'll just ask her if she remembers that. She doesn't. Or it doesn't matter to her as much as it matters to me.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't know that I could ever bring myself to ask her that.
You
I
will.
mean, just talking about it makes me want to throw up a little bit.
it's what remains unsaid or unasked, even with somebody like that, you know. You don't want to leave with that.
Yeah.
And also you don't want if that is there, you don't want to just stay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's I remember my mom laughing at me when I told her I was going to have a daughter. Because that's the way that's the way
They're gonna get you.
That's the way they punish you.
Yep.
Girls.
Yep.
Like, you could be the hardest dude. It's been amazing. Like, every single motherfucker that I've met, like, hard dudes that have done like wild shit, and they're like, I have a kid. It's like, let me guess, a girl. Yeah, fuck. That's usually that's how they get you, I guess. You know, you always want to think you're going to be ready for like whatever happens in your life. You have this delusion. It's like grown-ups. When you're a kid, oh, they're grown-ups. One day I'm going to be a grown-up, and they have it all figured out. And then you get to being grown-up, and you realize there's no such thing.
No, it's just holding on to the seat in a car ride that, like, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, like, all I have to do is just get to be a grown-up, and they know like what's going on. They don't. Nobody does. Like Santa Claus. It's our version of Santa Claus, like grown up. Like, and a friend of mine asked me, like, while I was going through my process, like trying to figure my shit out. He was like, "Hey, so what's your end goal?" Just want to be a responsible adult.
Yeah.
It's like that's
I just want to pay my bills and show up, man. Like, I want to live my life through my kid. Like, her triumphs and her trials and tribulations. Like, I want to be there for her every step of the way and see every part of it. And honestly, everything else is just a means to an end to being able to do that for her. Like, I don't care about anything else.
yeah. She shows up in your life through this person,
Yep.
and like you're not ready. I imagine for that relationship, you're not ready for any of that. That's usually when they show up.
Yeah. No. I honestly, I used to say I never want to have kids. I'm like, I'm never going to have a kid. And
Does that come from your own experience?
Yeah.
You're like, you don't want to put anybody through.
I just don't, like, I'm at that point, man, I was so broken. Like, I was functioning and at that time working patrol and in a little bit, I don't like a calmer environment, but I mean, you're still a street cop, and, you know, you're a canine guy and a drug recognition expert guy, and you're doing body recoveries with the dive rescue team, and you're like that was my thing. Like, she's going to have the baddest ass dad around.
Yeah.
And she doesn't give one fuck about a single thing. Like, none of that. None of it. She just wants me to be there smiling. Don't talk. Don't just show up and smile. And I do. Like, I will be there at every single thing.
It's disarming. Like
It is.
It's disarming. Like my 10-year-old. She'll walk into a room and there's somebody here that might know me and like they know what I did. And it's like, your dad's like this. Like, dad's boring.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter once, like, she told me I followed her on Instagram for like a minute. And then I was like, I pulled her aside and I'm like, honey, I'm going to kill all of these men in your Instagram. Like, you know, and we watched that very, very closely. But like that was hard for me to realize that like she's not 2 anymore and I'm not carrying her around, you know, taking pictures like I'm a good dad when, you know, in all honesty, her mom was the one that raised her. And like I was there, I was present, but not in the capacity that I could have been.
I wanted to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of our Patreon members for their generous support. It's the only way we can bring some of these amazing people behind the microphone and have some of these amazing Midnight of the Soul conversations for you guys. If you're not already a part of the Patreon community, please consider joining us. We have our giant online training catalog for you guys to have access to, as well as some exclusive Sneak Reaper Industries merch drops for you guys at the Dead Drop tier. I would also like to thank the company Sneak Reaper Industries, one of our main supporters and a company that provides some of the most amazing urbanware, survival specific, and cutlery out there. Your support not only makes this show possible, but also supports some of the charities that we run, including the Fighter's Kitchen out of Puerto Escondido, where we're supporting some up-and-coming fighters under the tutelage of Eddie Farrell. Thank you for your support, and again, please consider joining us on the Patreon. And now back to the show.
Yeah, what was missing in your mind? Like, and like for me, like it's only now that I realize how I was missing, because all history books are lies. It's just people looking back trying to make sense of chaos. Usually
It's written by the winners.
Yeah, it's written by the winners or written by fucking people that just have lucidity and like maybe this makes sense for this. And all autobiographies are also bullshit. You know, we don't write about the fucking horrible shit we did or the nonsense or the wasted time. What was missing, like in that time that you kind of like talk about, like what was missing from you as a parent?
Like just hating myself, not loving myself as a human being, and knowing that like we stumble, like you know, it was always very black and white for me. Like I'm either good or bad, and I took that as that, like, and what was missing in that situation was me. Like I hated myself so much.
When you say hate it yourself, and like people don't understand what that might mean, some people do, and some people are like all about it. Like I get reminders of that constantly. Like, hey man, you're loved. Like you're great. You should, you know, I don't know. Like and I'm like, what a piece of shit.
Yeah, like I'm a huge piece of shit.
And the whole self-hatred aspect. Can you, like, for me, it's like I feel like I'm glass, and I've described this to one of my therapists. I feel like I'm a booby trap. I feel like I have spikes inside of me, and if somebody hugs me tight enough, I'm gonna poke them because that's what's inside, and I don't want anybody to get close to do that. And it's like I can't get rid of it, and I try to nerf myself by, you know.
Mine was self-sabotage, ruining relationships, you know, adultery, and like just not being the person that I could be, you know. And there's some things that came from that that helped me progress to be a good person. And you know, now I can say, like, you know, I know that like I'm doing some stuff right, you know, but I think that I'll always have that, like that hate. Like it doesn't, like it's a fire that's always going to be burning, but you can pour water on it, it'll go down a little bit, but it'll never go away.
There is no going back to normal.
No.
There is no going home.
No.
Because home changes when you're gone, or you change on your way back to it. It's a mom quote. but there was like, there's no getting, I just have to do all these things, and this giant fucking black asshole that lives inside of me is going to go away, or is going to fucking just dissipate somehow. And I'm going to be wearing Hawaiian shirts and flip flops and shorts and enjoying vacation time. Like,
That's not ever going to happen for me. Like my wife hates bringing me on vacation because I don't. I'm looking forward to it now after Warrior Path. Like we talked about going on a vacation, like to see how I, handle myself and if I can shut it off and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I'm scared, man. Like
can you explain what Warrior Path is for people that are kind of listening to this and might not know?
So it's a program, bouldercrest.org, that deals with law enforcement and military and first responders post-traumatic stress issues, and
which is one of the most ignored and absurd things that go on within police institutions in the United States that is completely ignored. Like, people want to cancel the police, people want to fucking defund them. They're villains, they're bad, they're evil, but they don't realize how much fucking mental anguish some of these fucking people go through day in and day out. It's not like somebody going off into the Middle East and doing something like that. There's pain there. I'm not comparing both of them, but it's different. This is like a daily thing, and you don't get to
every single day.
You don't get to like, oh, now I have to like, I'm rotating out and I'm gonna go back somewhere and I'm just gonna chill out. It's different.
Yeah, I remember like the first time my daughter see me be like, I don't want to say the real me because that's not me.
Yeah.
But like, we were in Walmart and there was a guy that was just like mad mugging me because I'd hooked him up for something or whatever. And I remember giving him this look like, you will not fuck with me with my daughter here, or today will be your last day. And like he got the look, and that was the first time my daughter saw me give somebody that look, and it scared her.
Yeah.
Like, I remember her telling me like, Dad, what was up? Like, and I didn't have a word for her. And
your intention was to keep her safe, but in her experience, it's unsafe, and she felt really unsafe.
Yeah, it made it innumerably worse. Like, it was,
which is classic PTSD.
Yeah, it made it way worse. Like,
Warrior Path. How did you get linked up with Warrior Path? Like, how did you get there?
I had a real good friend from my hometown, Ty Ranke, and Ty had an experience at work. A guy had hit him in the head with a homemade machete, and then he ended up shooting the guy, and went in and rescued a bunch of people from this apartment that this guy had lit on fire. So he called me one day and he's like, I kind of been talking to your friends and like your Instagrams, like, you're struggling, man. Like, you need to go get some help. And I remember like, all right, fuck you. Like, I'm good, dude. Like, you deal with your shit, I'll deal with mine. Like, I remember getting kind of hot about it a little bit.
What were you posting that he would ask you? You would say that?
Just dark. Like, always, I don't know how to even quantify it. Just like how I communicated it was always like, well, not what was me, but like, the world's going to fuck me. So guess what? Here's where we're at.
Yeah. And
he saw it. You get the look. I don't know how to describe the look, but like, you can, like,
people worry. Like, you'll start posting. Social media is an interesting thing now. Like, people like window into your second. Sometimes you're telegraphing. You're like sad music, self-destructive or fuck the world type.
It was always fuck the world, self-destructive shit. Yeah.
And you're like, and some people thrive on that, or some people think that they thrive on that. The whole fuck the world, fuck around and find out, fuck you, like hard, gung-ho motherfuckers who are all about shooting them in the face and asking questions later. That type of people, that come from that experience. Like, I used to have some of that going on my end, specifically with the alcoholism. I would fucking, during COVID, before, like around the COVID lockdown thing, I would, just fucking down a beer and then like, yay. But it's like, that's horrible. That was bad. It was pretty bad. And a few people, it's funny now because the friends that I thought were there, like real friends, would celebrate that shit and would be all about it. And the people that would call me out on it, they fucking hated them for that.
Yeah,
And they're currently my friend. They're currently the ones that stayed.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I had great leadership in Wampton. Like they were just good people, and like they saw that, and at this point I had like he knew that how I quit, like the circumstances when I quit law enforcement. Like he knew that, and he saw me like just spinning my wheels for a couple of years, and he's like, "You need to go get some help."
And so like you never went to therapy, you never went to any of those routes, or you just show up to Warrior Path and this is going to be my therapy.
Well, they had sent me a couple. Like the department had been like, dude, you need to go talk to somebody. You're fucking uncorked. And so I'd go play the game. You're all right. I'll go tell you. I'm sad because people got hurt. You didn't tell them like I drank until I pissed and shit myself, and then like somebody found me. Or I cry myself to sleep at night because I can't get right with the things that like I've done in my head.
Yeah.
And a lot of that shit was just self-destructive shit. It wasn't even like law enforcement brought on. It was just me, just my own worst demon. And so I'd gone through a couple programs and they're like, great, you're sane. Like you give you a stamp and like send you back into the world.
I mean,
you
go through a couple of those and you start getting the gist of it. And you get some reading material, and like, you're like, I can fucking social engineer my way. For me, it was that. Like, I would get to some of the therapies at the start, and people that know me know that I'm all about the fuckery and social engineering and all this. So I'd be like, let me see what they let me figure out what they want to hear. I guess.
What can I get away with?
What can I get away with, or like, how can I get the better of them? Because they're trying to get the better of me. So fuck these people. Let me figure out what they want to hear. It's I can just fucking leave.
Yeah, you can't win a therapy, man. Like I am going to win the game of therapy today. Yeah. And so like I tried all that shit, and I tried when I quit, they had me on like 8 different meds. Like, so I was a zombie. Like you don't want to fuck, you don't want to like, you're just there.
What medic? So like that, I had my experience with medication. It was not. It didn't help.
No.
And can you share what medication?
Yeah, like they had me on like Lexapro, hydrazine, trazodone.
So zombie. For people that don't understand what that means, like if you probably have the same tisms that I have, you're on the same spectrum that I am. I could detect that you're probably kind of on the same spectrum that I have. That pain and that constant survival seeking of dopamine is the superpower is the dysfunction, right? Yeah. So when you start taking these medications that cut the supply of some of these things, you're
literally I just didn't like. There was like a year of my life where I just like I don't even remember a lot of it. Like that first year of getting out of it, like I still don't remember. Like it's a blur.
Yeah.
And I would even talk to people like it was like a year ago, like a whole fucking year passed. Like I was still living in that.
Time blindness.
Yeah. And so he's like, you need to go to this program. And so I called he had called and let them know like, hey, Dustin's broken. He needs to go before he changes his fucking mind. Like he's, we just need to get him on the plane and get him there. And this program, it pays for your flight. It pays for your lodging. It's not like you don't go there and they don't take your belt away and give you like the grippy socks and the like, we don't want you to hang yourself while you're here, so you can't have a belt. Like it was just 7 other dudes that had like seen a few things. And, the first thing that they address is like your core childhood trauma. Like what made you want to do this terrible job?
Yeah.
And you ever want to, like unpack your load that you're carrying, tell 7 perfect strangers like how
group therapy
terrible your fucking life was as a kid and what you survived and the molestation and the abuse and the trauma.
Yeah.
And then like once that's done, you're like, well, this isn't a big secret anymore.
Yeah.
Like somebody knows my worst terrible fears.
And also like some of the other people's experiences are gonna fucking be wilder than your own. at times.
Oh
Like,
no, I won that one. I won that therapy that time around.
I've been in some rooms where I'm like,
That's the first time I was. It was almost like they used it as like a battle cry for like, hey, Dustin, if Dustin can do this, we can do it. Like
Yeah.
it was wild.
I mean, I've been through some epic shit myself, and yeah, for me, like when I went through one of the like group therapy things, and I had some I had some horrible experiences at the job that I used to do, both, outward and internal, and just I went through some shit, some pretty horrible shit. But then I heard this woman talk about raising the product of a rape from a parent.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I got nothing on that. Like, I got fuck. Yeah.
and it gets you out of your own bullshit. There is a poisonous aspect of thinking that God specifically targeted you to just sent you an unlooped dildo, and you're special in that.
Yep.
Like,
Today is the day. Every single day.
yeah, it's not just you. There's a bunch of people that are getting that cactus dildo.
Yeah,
you know?
they're sticking a cactus dildo up your ass.
Yeah, there's you're not special.
No,
that.
and realizing that you're not special and that you can still have purpose. That was the big thing for me. Is like you can still serve. You just serve you serve your community in a different way, in a positive way, that you don't have the negative drawbacks from. I donate stuff to programs. We had a young man that I just saw on the internet, like I'd never met him before, and he had cystic fibrosis, and they were talking about his medical challenges, and they were going to send him on this dream hunt to go hunt a bear. And I just commented like, hey, little dude, come down, we'll make a knife, and you can have a mammoth tooth knife, and you can just go hunt. And the kid's dad called me, and he's like, so are you going to just send us like a knife in the mail, like a over-the-counter one? I'm like, no, bring your whole family down here, and we'll spend the weekend. We'll make this knife with him, and you'll have that memory forever. And that, like, finding peace through service was, service to my community without the drawbacks of, I don't have to be wild. I don't have to get questioned in court. I don't have to point guns at people. I don't have to I can just serve.
Yeah.
And I can find peace through that. And that was like Warrior Path gave me that.
You describe this whole aspect of the initial parts of it, basically like, hey, this is my wound,
Yep.
The light comes through the wound is something I fucking heard, was like, made me cry. Everybody's like showing theirs, you show yours, and everybody's like, motherfucker, like, put that away.
Yeah, I don't want to see that anymore.
Ew. You get but there's like a weight that comes off you when you do, though.
Oh yeah, it's unpacking your rucksack, man. They said like you're gonna leave here and feel lighter, and I laughed at him. I'm like, fuck whatever, dude.
Who's at the head of this project? Well, when you're there, for me, I've found, and I've had people here like Heroes for Horses, and people that run programs like that are fucking amazing. And I think one of the differentiators that I personally have had is when I'm going through a therapy or I'm going through a program like that, and I have somebody there that has been through shit themselves. Somebody that has super glued their fucking scalp closed because it was bleeding, because they didn't want to go to the hospital, because they didn't want the hospital to find out they were on some fucking substances.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, dude, that I've been through that too. Who's at the head of these groups?
So people that have been through the program,
Of course.
and
Do you think it's essential for somebody that has been through it themselves for people like us who have been through that type of lifestyle? You can't have Antonio, human rights, humanities student who's has a bonsai business somewhere, and is he gonna help me out?
No.
What about, like, what do you think that is? Access? It's trust? What is that?
So
Because that's the most difficult thing that I've encountered with people that are from that type of lifestyle or experience, is for them to be able to be accessed. You have to have somebody that's been been through it themselves.
So we're wolves, right? So like when wolves are around other wolves, they can tell. And when they're around people that could, like, they can bullshit, like they feed on it. And it's almost like a challenge. I guess for me it is.
Yeah.
And seeing the people and the care, like, that they give you because they've been there and they've had those traumas and they care, like, you know, they're not full of shit. Like, you can talk to somebody for 5 minutes and tell, you know, if they're bullshitting you or not. And they're, you know, they do you the courtesy of disclosing their things to you too. So you're on a level playing field. They're not psychiatrists. They're not doctors. They're not.
Which there's nothing wrong with, like, I'm not saying that you should be somebody of that nature, but like, whenever I would encounter therapy or therapist at the start of my process, and they, like, I could see them, like, your nose is straight, you know,
Yeah.
or you know,
Yeah, I get it.
you know,
Yeah, you've never been
you
hungry. You've
yeah.
never been cold. You've never been scared. You've never been alone.
I just remember this one time, this guy was talking to me, like, he's great. Like, I went with him after my process, but I remember seeing past his shoulder, and there was a picture of his happy family behind him. Like, what the fuck are you gonna be able to tell me about my situation? Right? So this almost a challenge that I felt like,
I'm gonna win at therapy.
yeah, retarded.
Yeah, it's totally stupid, but I mean,
you so like this, I'm interested in, like, people that might not know that this is out there. So this, you go there, you share your weight, you know, everybody sees it, everybody sees a wound, compare. Then what?
once you've done that, they give you the tools to direct your energy and not get in that doom slide. There's a book called Struggle Well. It's an amazing book. They have you read that. There's a book by Viktor Frankl. It's one of my favorite books. It was the hardest read I've ever read. You know, about finding you know, Viktor Frankl was, if you don't know who it was, he was a doctor that was interned in the during Holocaust. And he talks about that, about how even in the worst situation, you're like the master of your own domain. You can find peace if you look for it. It's all about attitude and not getting into that woe was me bullshit.
The whole feeling special about your, like, this is only happening to me.
Yeah, that
woe is me.
Yeah,
Why does this keep happening to me? Like,
it's not. It's got nothing to do with me, you know. And so they worked on that. They worked on, you know, physical health. We as first responders don't take care of ourselves. Like, we don't, you know, like our debriefs consisted of like a terrible suicide and the family screaming downstairs, and we're cleaning up, and the dogs run downstairs with like the ear in his mouth, and like you don't need to dwell on that every single day. And they give you the tools so that that's not the first thing I think of when I'm, you know, in my dark place or feeding on my own shit.
yeah.
And they teach you, you know, you can find peace. They work on meditation. They work on healthy eating. I remember
Self-care and exercise.
Yeah, I'm down.
And nutrition and all that is, you know, it's one of the whips that we hit ourselves with, you know.
And
That's
it's like the most important one. Like, you can't shovel garbage into a Ferrari and expect it to operate right, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm down 40 pounds from when I went into the program. My eating's better. My testosterone level was like 46 or something, and they get you on T therapy, and they talk to people, you know, and say, you know, T therapy is going to help you. That's not necessarily part of the program, but that was, you know,
it's tools. It's like, hey, this worked for somebody. Like, this might be a good idea for you. Like, maybe figure this out. Like, you know, the whole, hey, drink water.
yeah.
No, why? Or hey, like, you could take supplements.
Yeah.
But why? That sounds like self-care, and that sounds like somebody that loves themselves.
Yeah, I think I heard you say one time, like, you're depressed and you're upset, and it's like, no, you fucking need to go for a walk.
Yeah, it's good.
Like, literally how powerful that is.
Yeah.
I heard you say that, and I was like, oh, I know that. Like that's something we do. So, it teaches you not to just sit. Like, get off the couch and address whatever's going on. Don't dwell in it and enjoy the muck. You're not a pig. You don't need to wallow in it.
Yeah. You don't. It doesn't matter what opinion you have of yourself. You don't deserve that.
Correct. Yep. And then, you're there for 8 days, and then they do a weekly meeting through Skype or whatever. And they send you home with an app. And you want to talk about resources. Like they have resources for business. They have resources for mental health. They have resources for financial issues. The veterans they have things for the veterans, and I'm not a veteran, so I can't talk to it, but like I see it in the app, and they have places where you can take your family, like aftercare. They give you tools, and they stay in contact with you. Like the first gal I talked to when I went through there, Shannon Strop, like God sent her to me, because if anybody else would have talked to me that day, I'd have told them to go fuck themselves. I don't know what it is about her or what her story was, but she was there, and she's still always there. Like I talk to her, like at least message her every other day. And like, she was real. Like, she shared her struggle, and she shared her peace and what brings her joy now. And having her undergo that with me and sharing that bit of herself, like I'd never had anybody do that before.
Yeah.
And Mike Hillard is the director of that program that I went through, and like he drove all the way to Minnesota just to say hi to me one time from like Louisiana or something. I don't know where he lives, but it was a long way. And like, these people care. Like they truly care. It was the first program that I went through where I felt like, or the first time in my life, to be honest with you, where I left there after that 8 days not thinking I was a piece of shit anymore.
Authenticity is essential, specifically for people that have made a living off pattern recognition, figuring out who wants to fucking kill you and who doesn't want to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And you're judging people constantly because your life depends on it. Yeah. And somebody there is trying to like, hey, dude, all you have to do is this and that. Like, you're not authentic. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fucking listen to you. I think that is the hardest thing to achieve as far as somebody like showing up. The whole concept of the wounded healer is something I've.
There's stock in that, man. That's true. It's real. It's a positive. The broken leading the broken.
Yeah. I had a person show up in my life, Lisa Martinez, who is she's a curandera, I guess. It's like she's a healing woman, a native healing woman. Like you see them in movies and stuff like that, and every now and then you see someone online with crystals and shit like that. You're like, fuck that person. But Lisa's a fucking badass. She is not only a healer, but she's been through some shit. She carries a knife. That's the first thing I always like. Are you carrying a knife? Yeah, I trust you then. But she's the one that kind of like made me realize this aspect of my refusal to accept help or not to trust people, that their intentions were there or that I would even listen to any of them. She's like, there's something about somebody. One, she showed up for me because she identifies some of the shit she went through. Mm-hmm. And also she is stubborn as shit. So she doesn't give up on you. And she kept testing me. Like, hey, let's do this. Nah, fuck that. Oh, why not? Coward. It's like, fuck.
You got me.
You got me.
You got me with coward.
You got me with coward. But they're essential. Like, some of these people are essential, and in my line of work and where I was working, and there's still nothing. Like, I just went on this Spanish-speaking podcast and spoke about all of these things with words, tools, and things that I've learned from Americans. Like, I didn't know what PTSD was till I showed up to a weird therapy session with a bunch of people that lived around Pendleton. and it was inbounded too. For some reason, I have a bunch of Marines in my life. I don't know why. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse.
There's
you know?
worse groups to be part of. Like,
It's a blessing and a curse. I tell them, you guys are great, but sometimes you're fucking horrible. But they're great though. But discovering these words, as you say, like tools, is one way I think about them. Like just being able to name things. Like, hey, sometimes I have this feeling that goes through my forehead and into my chest, and then I need to just escape everything. That's a panic attack.
that is a panic attack. And I used to, I'd be like, all right, well, I got to go. Thanks, guys. And they called me like 15-minute Dustin for a while because like I could go to social functions for like 15 minutes and then like
Disappear.
I found a reason. Like, and it was great when I was like important. Like I felt important because my phone would ring and I'd be like, oh, got to go save the day and then run off to some bullshit. But
Yeah.
like that for a while, like that crutch, like not having that anymore of just now it's just Dustin being weird and leaving, you know, like you're just, all right, we'll see you guys later. And I'm out.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't even say goodbye or anything. You're just, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's escapism through panic attacks and through, you know, you get it.
Yeah. It's tools and it's letters to words that you don't even know. And it's worth it. I guess one of the main issues that I've had, and now in some weird fucking way, like just because of what I've been writing and showing people and talking about, people reach out to me for like, hey, Ed, how do you do this? How do you do that? Like advice. And I'm not a fucking therapist. Like, I'm like, what are you asking me for? But I think for me, one of the best things that I've done, and I've spoken about this a few times, I felt ashamed of the shit that I had gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like the U.S. where you go off to war and you come back and there's a bunch of like people that are gonna like, hey, you're a veteran, I'll give you a discount. Like, I was to this day, people spit on me for the work I did and where I did it, or I get accusations of being corrupt or like I was a piece of shit because there's no way you cannot be one in that environment in Mexico. Cops are the villains of most of the stories here, you know, and it's just different. And I guess one of the best things that somebody gave me as a piece of advice, it's like, what are you worried about? I'm worried about people finding out that I am a fucking shit show. Cool. Talk about it openly.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Fuck no.
Tell me all your deepest, darkest secrets and fears.
Write that down and post it online tomorrow. Why would I expose that nasty, pustulous, fucking festering wound to people? You can't pickpocket a naked man, Ed, is what I was told. And it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, once you're fucking naked, that's like, ceased to become an issue. And I remember that it's like literally like letting down a giant heavy ass backpack.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't have to worry about people finding out that I was a fucking raging alcoholic for all these years, or that I ruined a marriage because I was going through PTSD and I was trying to figure out what that even fucking meant.
Mm-hmm.
And then I invited a bunch of fucking horrible relationships into my life because I was still trying to figure out who the fuck I was at the same time as I was trying to come off alcohol. The main thing for me now is, what can I do with it now? Like, you know, you come out of that experience and like, how can I? There's no getting better, so that's not a choice.
Struggling well.
Yeah, how can I struggle well and also, like, I think you struggle well, and also making other people witness the struggling well aspect of it, and getting those DMs in the middle of the night where like, hey Ed, I'm on year 1 of sobriety. It's like, because of some weird Mexican dude, you know, cool, I guess, or I don't know, like I have these constantly, and they don't bring me anything but like, in my mind, it's like at least this is an after effect or an afterglow of this garbage fire that I'm getting. I mean, at least these hobos are warming their hands with me.
Yeah. Yep.
Is the feeling I get from it.
That's a good way to describe it.
At least these hobos are warming their hands with the dumpster fire that is in front of them. But that fire eventually has to go out.
Yeah.
With a lifestyle like that, and for me, leaving that behind, thinking that's over, but it's not. All the fucking therapy, healing, quitting drinking, but all the while, as I was doing all that, you still can't be idle,
Yep.
So for me, it was, how can I turn my life experiences into training for people so they can not go through the same shit that I went through, I guess, or how can I teach people to be capable? So I started doing the training thing. Also became a designer of knives for some weird fucking reason, and that worked out for me somehow. Started a clothing brand. Started being online, sharing memes, and I don't know. I don't even know how I got to where I am and this whole thing. But there's like work. It's like a work that I have to do, I first started seeing your work online. You mentioned your grandfather used to do knives, and kind of you worked on that, and you probably had some of that still in you. So, like, how did you get from what you did before to now being somebody that's kind of known for something completely different, which is creating cool things, old world type things?
So I was working in my garage and working on knives and trying to like find, what's my thing? What is going to help me find this? And the internet brought me Jeremy from Dark Alliance Firearms.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, it's like, hey, you do stuff with things that nobody else does.
For people that don't know, Dark Alliance, what do they do?
So they do some really high-end engraving, just
something
one of a kind, wild stuff.
Something that, what's this guy's name? Constantine would probably carry, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like these elaborate old world type, just engravings on things.
It's like he puts a soul into the gun. Like each gun that he works on, it's like it's got its own anima.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
He just, the guy's, it's like his hands were touched by the gods, like his design hands.
When I saw his work, I remember seeing the first time I said it. I'm Mexican, so like every time I see crocodile boots and engraved guns, it was like, oh. But yeah, it's I don't know. Like every now and then, we would find engraved things out there, and it does give it something. I don't know what it is. These embellishments or this scroll work, or we would find things with like the Santa Muerte on them, or the cartel name of one of these guys. And some of us would get our guns done that way as well. And there's something about that it's the personalization and or the embellishment of a weapon.
It's like, swords, like they used to decorate their swords, or like, that's an extension of your hand.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, like, he knew I was fucked up, like right away. Like I think he called me on it. He's like, you're not really like good, are you? Like you're going to be okay. But like you're in a dark place, man. And, so that led me to like where I am today, between that and, always trying to find like the adventure in the product. So, going to Alaska to find mammoth tusk and, meeting the people associated with that,
So you're working on knives. You start getting into grips. You start getting into exotic materials. Ivory is like modern ivory is highly illegal and regulated. You can't. If I wanted an elephant tusk fucking handle grip
Yeah,
on something,
no, I wouldn't be the guy.
you would be the guy.
Yeah.
Where does like I remember experiencing and seeing some of the first like knife shows that I would go to, and I would see these wild mammoth ivory, just these things that are like ancient, and how some of them turn different colors and stuff like that. Is that the first experience you have with some of this material?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had like I have like the type of autism where I can like tell you different types of rocks and where they're from, and I just use that as a tool.
But that wasn't enough for you though. Like
Oh,
it
fuck
wasn't.
no,
It
no.
wasn't enough for you to see something at a show and buy it. You wanted to fucking go to Alaska
Yeah.
So what pushes you to like going to these knife suppliers that will sell you this block of mammoth ivory? Why is that not enough? Why do you have to fucking go to fucking Alaska out of all places?
I wanted to be the guy. Like I have this thing where this innate drive to like I can't just be. I have to be the best at it or recognized for it, and I know where that comes from. But so I had, did the ride off into the sunset of turning in my badge and gun and just saying fuck you and walking out, and I had cashed out all my retirement and paid some bills, and then told my wife, like, at this time she's like, is he going to go up there and do himself, or what is he, and that was, I was going to make it or die. Like I went up there to like, I'm going to buy raw mammoth tusk, and I'm going to.
And where are you going specifically for people that might not track where you're going to Alaska?
So I went up to Fairbanks, and there's a gentleman that I met on the internet named Chuck Leak. And Chuck is an interesting cat. He is a very, very good artist, and he's the guy that you go to for mammoth tusk, and he works with like the native people up there that supply it. And
Where's he getting it? Is it just coming out of the ground? Or there like how? Why is there so much of it?
so it's coming out of the ground. Obviously, they find it after storms or that type of thing.
Was there some sort of like mass die out event, and all these mammoths were in some specific place? Like I don't know. Like it's surprising how much of it there is.
So that's an awesome rabbit hole. If you ever really want to go down it, there's a man named John Reeves, and he is the owner of the Boneyard, Alaska. And if you follow that page, if you don't, you should follow it, because
It makes like I have to stop myself sometimes going down some of the rabbit holes where he's found
like his blue feather and like the cave bears and the things that they say like don't exist or didn't exist there. And he's like, bullshit, it's right here.
Joe Rogan kind of made him famous like by sharing some of the stuff that he's been.
Yep.
But like he found like he found some hand tools and stuff like that that shouldn't be there,
Correct.
which people are like dubious about because of course, but it's some wild stuff he's found, like gold nuggets. Remember that giant gold nugget he found there?
Yep.
But out of all the things that he's found there, I remember seeing he found a blue feather that has been in there for thousands of fucking years. Which is, I mean, you go to a museum, you see fucking fossils and bones all the time, but not a feather.
No.
Not a feather that's that old.
No. And so Chuck, he's like, hey, do you want to meet my friend John Reeves? And I'm like, fuck yes, I want to meet John Reeves. And so he brings me out there, and I don't know if John like saw something in me or what it was, but like, I mean, that guy changed my life. He brought my grips on Joe Rogan, and like, I mean, and he is a man of few words, but the words he speaks are true, and they should be carried with weight.
Yeah, he's a no bullshit type
No,
of guy. He's
no,
like,
no, no,
fuck,
no.
That's him.
No, what you see is what you get,
Raw
and
mother-
he is
raw
not to be
guy.
fucked with. Like, he is just a good man, but don't push him.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to call him friend, and he's a good dude. And all the stuff that they find there, like, they don't sell it. Like, they don't. I don't even get access to it. They save it all. They're gonna put all the mammoths back together or something. But
I mean, they're pulling out just
hundreds of fossils all the time. And that little area of land has such a huge stockpile of it. There had to be something that led to that.
There was some sort of mega die-out situation there or something. That's the only way I could explain it. I mean, the only thing comparable to that maybe like the La Brea tar pits,
Yeah,
but there's no tar there.
No, and there's no reason in the history books or any of the scientific books that should happen. And they're proving scientists wrong time and time again. And academia is scared of it. They run from it and they fight it, and it's like an uphill battle for John and his family to get the truth out.
And is there, like, not to get off like a tangent on that, but is he giving access to scientific community people to see some of these things? I mean, like some of the human modified stuff that I saw on there made just to try and figure out when that was. And also what we've learned about human beings being in the Americas.
Yeah.
It's like, doesn't make any sense.
So I think he's leery of it. Like, I don't speak for him. I mean,
Yeah.
he's, but like the American Museum of Natural History has got a ton of his bones, and they're going to have to answer for why they're gone. And I think that lends to him not wanting people there because,
I get it.
you know, you screw me once, shame on you, screw me twice, shame on me type thing. And I don't think that he's going to give one fuck about anybody until he gets his bones back, and rightfully so, or an answer of where they went. And
Agreed.
So, and he's owed that. I think he's owed that. His company's owed that. He's got receipts. He's got, like, in law enforcement, you look for proof.
Yeah.
And that guy posts proof every day.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's like undeniable. It's like, hey,
it's very, very, very clear, plain as day.
like,
Yeah. So it's
so when you were looking for your materia prima, your prime material,
yep.
since you're on the spectrum, you didn't want to buy it on a knife show. You had to
I have to control the means of production, man. I need
go the fuck out there.
Yeah, with a backpack with money in it, and just show up to
Get
a stranger
introduced
from the internet.
Get introduced to this stranger from the internet. Get access to this phenomenon of a space and person and this just weird source.
Yeah.
What is the process of, like, when you get there? Like, hey, you know, how do you even choose? Like, what's the selection process? Like, hi, I need.
So, I met with Chuck, and he just had a ton of it, and he's like, well, we'll cut this and look in the middle and see what this is, and I've got,
So you have to cut it open to see,
like, what you're gonna get, because you don't know, like, what the quality of the mammoth is, if it's tight, if you know what the.
So there's different. So, like, do they have cavities, or like?
Yeah, there's,
some
like,
of them have like.
Yeah, like, I've bought mammoth tooth, and I did a set of grips for a company, and I cut into the mammoth tooth, and there's like cavities, just like any other animal would have.
Is it like like, I don't know, like this is cute. Like, I'm just curious. Like, is it disease that they had in life? Is it like bone density things that they had in life, and then when they die, that these things are there, or is it something that happens during the fossilization in the ground?
There's so many variables. Like, you know, the inside of the teeth, when there's like voids like that, you know that was most likely a cavity or a genetic thing. But
So you can buy this giant fucking piece of my mammoth ivory tusk, and then you cut into it, it's fucking hollow inside. Fuck.
yeah. So, and you can usually tell, like, if it's broken open, or, you know, if it comes from Chuck, it's good. It's probably the best. You know, I post pictures, I'm sure you've seen, of, like, the solid mammoth tooth that he'll send me, so I don't have to go up there, like, every time. That would be.
And why are some of these things coming out with some of these weird ass fucking colors? Like, what is that about?
So the blue, like the blue, like that bright, vibrant blue is like Vivinti. It's a chemical, or not a chemical in the ground, but like a mineral in the ground, and it attaches itself during the process, and
it leaches into the ivory.
Yep.
And when you speak fossils, people might think these are made of stone,
It's just like a really dense wood, like a African rosewood. If you were to cut into rosewood, it's the same consistency, hardness type thing. And the tooth is obviously stone. So you cut that with diamond blades and you stabilize it with pressure chambers and those kind of things. And that was all stuff that like we had to learn.
Yeah, there's no online videos detailing some of these things or
no, but if you ever want to get hate mail, post how to do that on there, and there's not many people that know how to do it, and they would be extremely butthurt.
It's like I've been around the knife community, and I know how people are kind of really protective about their intellectual property, I guess is what they would say. So you're going out there, you're kind of selecting. Did they show you anything? Did they teach you anything about how to pick these things? Like I know it's like for you, it's this learning process of like nobody's been here before.
Yeah, it's a lot of navigating new fields, and so John and his family, they restore some of the tusks for their little museum that they have and that kind of thing. So, but like I've never asked them or I never put like myself in that position to make them uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I had, there was some learning curve there, and me taking on my brother-in-law Joe was a partner. Like he dove into that like full hand. Like I refer to him as like the calming goat, like the like when I wanted to deal with people like I used to deal with them like when I was a cop, as opposed you don't fucking deal with customers like that. You got to take it down a notch. Yeah. And some hard lessons were learned that way. Like I've cost our business a lot of sales and money because I'm broken, or was broken. Yeah. And so it was a good opportunity to kind of learn to navigate, not only business, but like the process to make this so that you can use it and like they can put it on a 45 and shoot it and it's not going to blow into a million pieces.
Is there like, I have friends who former military, who went into knife making, and some of the business aspects of it doesn't transfer over.
No, not at all. It's a nightmare.
But I mean, curiosity for me, like, what is the process like? Do you stabilize it?
Yep. So first thing we'll have to do is see what the moisture content of it is.
How do you do that?
A moisture meter and cut it. And then once it's to the correct dry state, you can't dry it so fast that it's just like wood. You can't dry it so fast that it'll crack. Or, there's some stuff where if you look at it and it's bright white, that's just like salt buildup and chalk. That's not even mammoth. And that was thousands of dollars of lessons to learn before I ever got up to meet Chuck, or John or any of those guys. I bought thousands of dollars of just basic chalk. You put it in the oven and it dries and it's powder. You're like, well, I'm going to have to sell this as cocaine because I'm not going to make it back. You know what I mean? Like you just drive down the window and throw $1,000 bills out the window.
Fuck.
And that was a hard, expensive lesson. And, my wife is a very tolerant woman, like to put up with like my journey, let alone a journey of me, burning. She called it my magic beans. Like I spent our last $700 on this rare rock that I wanted to make into gun grips. And it came in the mail and she was just beside herself. Like, what are you going to do with this? This is magic beans. And I flipped it like in a day to like $4,000.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, maybe he's onto something. Like maybe he's not just an idiot. Like, and, so that, you stabilize it. There's a couple different processes that we use. And then once it's stabilized, we'll cut it into the blocks like you see like at knife shows and shit. And then, we laminate it to, carbon fiber so that a lot of the stress is on the carbon fiber.
And that might put some people off. That might be like, what do you mean? You're like, that's unholy. You're making functional weaponry.
Correct.
Like, it's one thing to look pretty.
Yeah, I don't want a barbecue gun. Like, I carried a gun for 20 years. Like, I don't want somebody to be in a shootout and have my grips be the reason that they didn't win. I couldn't, and so, like, the purists hate me, and that's okay. Like, how could you ever do that? Well, I just did. Yeah, like it's 1 millimeter carbon fiber, and that's what you're pissed about. Like,
yeah, but I guess what might escape some of these, I go to Blade Show every year, and I remember Jer Lindsay, my brother of mine who used to run some of the Usual Suspects network show, the USN show. He introduced me to this guy somewhere one night, and he handed me a butterfly knife. And I'm like, cool. I grabbed it, I flipped it, and it closed it, and grabbed it from my hand and fucking put it back in the little zipper pouch and left. And like, Jer's like, hey, that was a very expensive thing you flipped that you shouldn't have flipped. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, could you drop it? And the tip, it's a lot of money. It's like, why do you fucking hand me a knife then?
Did you know me? Like,
Like,
you've
like,
seen what I do.
Yeah, like, don't hand me shit. I'm
Yeah.
going to use it.
Yep.
But there's an art aspect to things, and I get the aesthetic, the beauty, the conserving something pristine. But then it's like, I want a weapon.
Yeah, I want to use it. Like I had a buddy say, "Is that a barbecue gun or a using gun?" And I'm like, "What?" I'd never heard that saying before. He's like, "Do you wear it at the barbecue and show everybody, or do you go out and shoot?" And the first time I really tested our grips, it wasn't even on purpose. Like my old partner from the police department, we shoot every year. We have to qualify so we can keep our credentials, even though we're retired. We can still carry a Leosha or whatever they call it. And he shot that whole qualification course with like mammoth tusk ivory grips I made for him. And every time he pulled the trigger, I went, oh. But they made it through, and it's been 3 years now, and he still shoots the same gun with the same grips. So like, I'll take it. I'll wear that as a badge of honor. So
The like, and also like just I've seen your work, and again, a shit ton of people have seen your work now with it showing up on Rogan. The culture of beautification or customization or just this whole I don't know, like it's a very Mexican thing. Like we have a lot of that here, where it's like, I'm gonna carry something that's meant to kill people, but look, let me make it like badass looking. Like, is that in like I don't where in the U.S. where is that as far as a culture? Like, do you see that do you see it? Is it did it go away and now it's coming back? I mean, we just lived through decades of Glocks and plastic guns and shit like that. Do you see it as something that's kind of like kind of like emerging again? Like, where is that?
So there's a couple different, so I attack it from a couple different angles. That lighter that I gave you when I came in, my buddy, William Tillery from Deplorable, he is kind of my, like, I make my blanks for him, and he does a really good engraving job. And then you have like, for like my, like Mexican, customers, I have Mariano Gomez from Stormbreaker Engraving, and he helps me navigate that world. So I have like the American side with Jeremy and William and a couple other guys, and then I have Mariano that helps me navigate, like, okay, here's what's hot right now. And because this is not my culture, like I'm not, this is just not me.
Yeah, it's almost like you remind me like a tattoo artist. You know, like tattoo artists have this whole thing where like they could be an artist of a style or a specific type. Like a guy that does pretty good, cool, Japanese style tattoos cannot maybe transfer himself to making something for,
Correct.
Like it's a whole thing. So you have to like have conversations between each other as artists.
Yep. And that, that makes a huge difference. And, navigating that, it's coming back. People want to stand out. They want to be different. Everybody wants to be remembered. I don't want to be remembered, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And so I think that has helped me, because I transferred that old world, or my old job of running informants. Like, you got to have this person for this situation, this person for this situation. And I just turned that into the gun world, basically. Like, and it works great because, those guys are artists. Jeremy is the best in the business. You have Mariano is a huge rising star, William, huge rising stars. They're the best of the best. And fortunately, like, I get to play just a small role in their projects, whether that's grips or whether that's, some engraving or some idea. So I'm very fortunate to have that. It's almost like a family. you know, you look for people with like-minded.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a, like, for us as Mexicans, we are losing our gun rights daily. In Mexico, there was just a sweeping federal reform where now even accessory, like, if you like, there were some things that were permitted, but like accessorizing a gun of any kind, now that's going to be probably something that's going to be being able to be, you're going to be able to be punished for that federally.
Holy crap!
Right, so those are going out, and of course we're going through a militarization of this country, and there's a leftist person at the top of this. So, like, of course, guns are going away. It makes sense. As an immigrant, you know, like, I like the whole deplorable thing there. Like, because people assume, no, I'm Latinx. Is something I've been told that I should be calling myself, apparently. As an immigrant to this country, a legal immigrant, because I went through it legally, it's insane to me to see people that come from environments like the ones that I come from, or the sons or daughters of people that come from an environment like me, fighting to take those rights away that made me, you know, be a resident of Texas, you know.
Yep.
The gun culture, yes, there are things that are kind of like difficult to kind of process of having a proliferation of guns. There is absolutely a negative side to it. But the culture of having people who are armed, you know, like, I've gotten to experience Texas as a culture, you know, of people being armed and not dependent on somebody that's going to arrive there after the fact. And not only that, but it's a long culture, and there's a lot of heritage. Like, I've seen a lot of things that I recognize in that heritage, a lot of Mexican things that I'm really proud of. But also just a lot of identity. Like, you see this in the native cultures, where somebody will show up with this regalia that stems from a bloodline that who knows from. And I have some of my Caucasian friends who sometimes look at some of the stuff that I carry and some of the culture that comes with it. And I think there's an interesting thing to be said about a reconnection to warrior culture and culture in general to some of us that have been robbed of it. Because a lot of Americans, specifically on the white side of the spectrum, for some reason were robbed of their culture or have been extricated from that culture, you know. Some people are, you know, Irish Americans, they call themselves, but they don't know how to make a shillelagh,
Yeah.
or they don't know what that even a shillelagh is, or they don't know any of the songs. They've forgotten them, or they weren't important, so you had to assimilate to this culture. So forget all about that shit. And I see hints of that in the whole "you're Latinx." Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, I'm a fucking immigrant from Mexico. That's what I am, right? And I'm also a new person or a new American. I'm trying to figure that out. Like, I migrated to the United States when Trump was being elected, and everybody was screaming at me, "You'll see, he's gonna fucking..." Nothing happened, you know. Then I lived through 4 years of Biden. When I immigrated to the U.S. legally, I didn't get a debit card. I didn't get free housing. I got scrutinized like a motherfucker. I went through 4 meetings with immigration, and they thought my kid wasn't mine, and there was a fucking sham and all that. And it didn't matter that I had the language, the skills, and the history of supporting interests outside of the U.S. None of that mattered. And now you see this. There's a weird reality that's trying to be sold to us. So when I see somebody taking one of the most amazing rights there is for somebody like me to witness, the right to bear arms. There's so much to it. Like, I've been in places where people don't even have a rock to throw at the men that might come for their daughters. I've seen people search for their daughters that were taken by armed people out of their houses to a party and never seen again. And I know what it's like to hear them wail and scream when they finally get found. And, like, you think, Ed, do you think a gun would have changed that? Who do you want to be in that conversation? the guy with a gun or the guy without a gun. And I've met a bunch of people that have been the people without a gun.
Armed society is a little bit politer society.
Yeah. And not only that, one that recognizes the culture of it, because I think that's what's missing in the U.S.
I think it was robbed. I don't know. It's missing. It was taken away because they don't want us
corroded.
to have it. Yeah.
It's corroded. The culture, and it's not missing everywhere, but it's
Starting to.
So I think that's very valuable what you guys do. The infusing art, culture, materials, creativity, and personalization, and actually making something that, yes, it's a gun. It's a fucking gun, and will shoot you. But it's also heritage. And once you infuse a weapon with heritage, culture, and yourself, it stops being just a fucking weapon, you know? I think there should be more of that, I think. That's a valuable fucking thing. We need to save that, I guess. It's kind of like what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see people, like, what are people asking for you? Like, what is it like? What are you seeing as far as trends as people asking for? Like, hey, I want the gun of Rambo. Like, what are they? What are people asking for?
So, personalize what's important to them at that time. I've got a really good customer, and I hope he's cool with me saying it, but Andy Green, and he had us do a gun with, like, he likes dice, and he likes, like his birth date, and like making it kind of a darker theme gun, and then beautiful pristine mammoth on it, or they just want something that says, like, maybe I've seen a few things, and that will articulate that through just by looking at the gun. But then you get other people that just like, I like the New York Giants, so they want a New York Giants gun, and there's no, like, heritage to that, but it's unless they play for the New York Giants, then it's a little different, We try to take, like, the soul of the customer and put it into what we're building, because part of our soul goes in,
which is something that has been done for centuries. Like, this is a very human thing. Finding a buried Viking sword with somebody's, name on it, or runes for protection,
like the Uthbert, or like those things.
Yeah,
like,
finding something like that. Or here in Mexico, every now and then you'll find, these arrowheads that are very specifically made, and some of them are like exaggerated. Some of them will have, like, chipping on one side only, like serrations. And the only reason somebody would do that is because they're very good at arrow making, and they want it to be unique, and they wanted people to know that this is their fucking arrow. Yeah. And they're speaking to us from fucking hundreds of years in the past. Like, there's something to it, I guess.
Yeah, it brings me peace. So that's my end goal is, I have something in front of me that either I or Joe or both of us can touch, and start to finish, it was us that made it, and people can look at it and be like, hey, is that Hill stuff? Is that Burkett? Did you guys do that? And that's wild to me.
Yeah.
That, like, I live in a tiny ass little town in Minnesota, and hear people, like, know my name or know our name.
Is somebody looking at a painting and knowing who painted it?
Yeah, it's like that. It's wild.
They recognize that, and yeah, it's mind blowing.
I'm honored. I'm awestruck. I don't have words for it, but I appreciate it. Like, I'm fucking real grateful.
And the aspect of it being art or functional, and just like that, I've seen some customized engraved stuff that is like, and yeah, like New York Giants stuff. I get it, cool. Like, everybody has we used to find some ridiculous cartoon, like cartel guns that are embellished, like, to a high degree.
Yeah.
of El Chavo del Ocho was one of them. It's like a Mexican fucking comedy show character. El Chapo Guzman's gun had his Forbes number on it, which is pretty fucking amazing to see.
It's a flex.
That's a
That's
fucking,
a fucking
that was,
huge
that was
flex.
a fucking flex of a gun. And some people guns with their saints on the grips. So from Santa Muerte to there's a weird belief here in Mexico that if you have a Saint Jude icon on your gun, but the staff is on its left hand, it's actually Judas, not Saint Jude.
Awesome.
Which is somebody that certain people venerate,
Yeah, I know exactly where you're getting at with it. Yep.
So you find these cultural things in these guns, and they're cool. I mean, they're historical. A lot of those guns basically ended up in there's a cartel museum where a lot of these things end up at like when they get fucking taken from people. But the infusion of meaning into them, like them showing off some of that, it could be negative people, it could be like all this weird stuff, but like there's a power into people being prideful of their weaponry and their warrior culture, which is something I think, Americans have such an amazing warrior culture. It's like sometimes they forget about it. They fall in love with New Zealanders doing a haka somewhere. They're like, that's cool as shit,
Yep.
But you guys have a lot of that too, You guys have a lot of that culture, but I guess sometimes what gets missing is the delivery, Again, I've seen some guns being engraved with some pretty shitty quality, and like you can tell it's somebody just fucking putting that shit on the laser and like figuring that shit out. But the whole aspect is personalization. You going out there and fucking getting your materia prima, figuring out the right artist for the right project, and having somebody actually put themselves in a gun.
Yeah.
That's something you want to leave for your kid. Maybe him continuing on that tradition.
And Jeremy showed me all that. Like that's like I had a pretty fucking good guide. So, the materials and stuff I came about on my own, but like navigating this gun world and like getting a big jump start on it, on Jeremy's, coattails, getting to see, the people that he makes stuff for, right now that we're making our own 1911s, we get to do some just for some cool people. Like I'm working on one right now for Rocky Emerson, the porn star. Like there's just cool people that like never would be I would never have any contact with those people. Like,
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. Like I'm very, very blessed and fortunate, and like this journey that I'm on has been wild, but I wouldn't change it for anything at this point now.
When you talk about like some of the way you talk about it, like it reminds me of like Japanese sword makers who have to get the right steel, and they go to auctions to get the right steel and the right wood and the right cordage, and they have to like some of the best quality ones. You have to go and stand in line and auction off these and that, and it matters.
It does. It absolutely matters.
It matters. Once you see that end product, you can tell who was. If you can see the artist in it, I think that's how you know.
Yeah, people would ask me like, how do you stabilize it? I'm like, just tears from being broken. Like that's, and they look at me like, why do you say shit like that? But I mean, that's who I am. I don't hide from it. So that's what sets me apart.
This again, we're about to enter into a new age. This Trump election and some of the things that are kind of like changing and happening. Are you seeing any of that kind of like? Are you seeing any of the effects of this on your end, as far as like people being more open to like maybe guns, or more open to like this culture? Is it changing? Like I like to talk to people in the gun community and seeing where their attitudes are and where sales are, and just general. There's nobody more in touch with it than people like you that are in that community to see where people's minds are at. I remember a shit ton of people buying guns during COVID because fear is the ultimate motivator.
Mm-hmm.
some idiots that are like all anti-gun, like, hey, can I borrow a gun? Like, oh, dude, fuck you.
Yeah, no, you can't have a gun. I'm shopping at your house when this goes to hell.
But then all of these same people, like some of them, voted contrary to their fears later on because that's just the culture we're in. What are you seeing on that end as far as like general attitude towards guns? You think it's something that's going away? Is it getting stronger?
This election, people voted with their pocketbooks, and the economy was tanking for the last 4 years. Sales are worse than they'd ever been. People don't have extra spare money, and as soon as that it came through that Trump won, it was like a resounding, very large, and a lot of people you wouldn't expect just take a deep breath and go,
Jubilant.
A weight had been lifted. And people wanted to spend money. Like after that election, people were like, hey, we're going to spend money. And I look at the roadblocks that I have or that we have in the gun community, Instagram shutting our posts down. Like I can't be recommended. I've been shadow banned for like 2.5 years.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah,
you can't even post a drawing of a fucking gun.
No. And so by their rules, like I'm a brick and mortar FFL, so like they should let me. No, they're fuck you, Dustin. Like, and Facebook constantly taking our stuff down, and it's like we have freedom of speech in America. We have a right to bear arms. Stop vilifying us. We're not going to go away. I mean, you want to talk about culture? Go tell a large majority of the population that they can't have their guns. It's going to get bloody fast.
Yeah.
Because that is their religion. That's like their way of the gun. And that is
that aspect of it. Like a lot of people criticize from the outside of the U.S. and even from my culture, they criticize the U.S. for their obsession with guns, right? But me being there, and yeah, there's some of that. Mm-hmm. I've met some idiots that should probably have no guns, but they have 1,000 of them, and it's all part of their identity.
Yep.
And I get the whole, bald eagles flying in the sky and shooting 2 ARs into the sky and shit like that. But I get that. For me, the U.S. isn't about the freedoms it gives me. It's about its allowance of responsibility.
That's a good way to look at it.
For me, that's been the best thing about the U.S. It has allowed me to take responsibility in some amazing, huge ways. One, the opportunities it has given me. The opportunities that has given me to prepare not only everyday people into how to be safe and how to keep yourself out of some fucking horrible situations, but also members of the government and some of the armed forces. And also just like, hey, you can carry a gun. Mm-hmm. You just have to be responsible and safe with it. And if something happens, you are an asset, not a fucking liability.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, treat your fucking gun like a spare tire. It's there if you need it, but you don't show it to everybody.
Yeah.
Like you don't open your trunk and go, look at this beautiful spare tire. And so that is like, I tell people that, like, there's a time and a place to be flashing that around, and this is neither the time nor the place,
There's definitely an obsession in some parts of this culture, and I get it. Like going to SHOT Show for me was like I was like, I understand some of it,
but it's like porn to people.
But other sides of it, like, yeah, Punisher skull logo, like, look at the Flash level shit is funny. Mm-hmm. I get it. But it's also, I don't know, there's like a line there. And I think there should be a conversation to be had about some of it. I'm not saying people shouldn't put Punisher skull logos on the front of their guns, although they're kind of gay. But like whatever people are into, like it's their own thing. I think there's a case to be made of, like, when you talk about gun culture, mm-hmm. Can somebody define what that culture should be or what that culture is? Because we have a lot of voices out there, I have a lot of instructors that are talking shit about each other, and you don't know how to shoot. This is how you do it. But again, the commonality is there. I remember living through COVID in the United States and seeing that, suddenly everybody's equal. Suddenly there's a line of fucking people outside of a gun store in LA that is no longer in business, by the way, which is hilarious, mm-hmm. right? That they fucking shut that place down. Even though there was a line of people buying.
Sad. It's terrible. They're taking away your Second Amendment right.
And for people that are like very confident about like it's fine now, yeah, now it is. You know, we used to have some of those rights in the Constitution in Mexico, and now you can't even put a flashlight on a gun, or else you're going to be even in worse trouble than you were before, because some of that shit is getting fucking eroded away from the powers that be that don't want an armed populace. Mm-hmm. The cartels can be armed, mm-hmm. The army can be armed. And they're going to be the ones that are going to be responsible. And you guys are children, and you just have to fucking take it.
Yeah, and I have no time for that.
No
not
way.
Not in the least bit.
And people sometimes question my politics. They're like, Ed, are you pro-Trump? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, well, one, no, I'm not pro anybody. You know, I think Trump is probably too old to be in that position too now. I'm worried about that. I'm definitely worried about that dude that just walked into the fucking jungle after a press conference, Biden, and how he just basically authorized some shit that can kick off something bigger.
Mm-hmm. That's terrifying.
All that is terrifying. But I do just know that whatever is going to happen, like we have to take responsibility for shit. And you saw that in the elections. Mm-hmm. Who voted for who? Mm-hmm. People say race, misogyny, and race. Like a bunch of women voted for Trump. A bunch of brown people voted for Trump. A bunch of black people voted for Trump. A bunch of immigrants to this country that have come from other parts of the world that don't have some of these rights and responsibilities and freedoms.
And they fled for a reason.
That's it. And somehow, you get called all these names. I'm on the sidelines currently. I can't vote. I will eventually, but for now, I'm like looking at the whole conversation and like seeing living through cancel the police, defund the police type situations, and now seeing the rampant corruption in some institutions related to police and law enforcement and privatization of prisons and all this type of shit. That's very familiar for me as a Mexican. Like, I've seen this shit. I know where it leads to.
I've seen this episode. I know what's up.
I know where it leads to, right?
Yeah.
And the woke politics that are now being kind of like pumped into our children. Like, you want to talk about some of the scariest things that I've seen in the United States? Universities.
Yeah.
Look, I've spoken to at some of these universities about the realities of what I've lived through. And I've been shouted at by privileged teenagers that have never been outside of the confines of the corner store of their neighborhood, probably, telling me that I'm wrong for the realities that I'm telling them about something I lived through.
I was fucking there.
I was there.
Yeah.
How can you be pro-gun? Like, look at all the damage that these guns have done to your country. The guns don't shoot themselves. No. How can you vilify that? Like, if you leave a gun on the corner, that's not going to do anything. Yes, there's some shit going on, but like, okay, who's to blame? Who's to blame? The government? Cool, then blame the fucking government. What does, the farmer that's defending their property in Arizona because the governor out there is a piece of shit, defending his property because a bunch of cartel people are passing children, drugs, and a bunch of other shit through the property? They don't have a right to defend themselves with their property with a firearm? What does that have to do with the issue? Yeah, the government had done some pretty horrible shit. I lived through Fast and the Furious. Mm-hmm. I lived through that shit. There's a picture of me with an AK-47 that I post up online every now and then. That was a Fast and the Furious gun.
Wow.
Some of those guns killed some of my friends. Some P90s killed some of my friends. Do I blame somebody like you about it as a Mexican? It's your fault because you're enjoying these gun rights and freedoms and you're proliferating this gun culture. It's your fault? Or do I blame Eric fucking Holder for being a fucking idiot and the people behind him, and probably Bush as well, because he started some of these weird fucking programs that allowed those guns to not only walk across the border but arm a very specific cartel? Who do I blame? Who do I go after? Who do I vilify? Mexico sued a bunch of American firearms companies, and a lot of Latinx people in the United States were applauding that and like kind of rubbing that in my face. Hey, even your country knows that your opinions are wrong. Yeah, they sued everybody except the companies that they were buying their fucking firearms from.
Yeah.
Those companies were missing from that list.
Yep.
So hypocrisy is all over. Stop mixing the government with the people. They're two fucking completely different fucking things.
Absolutely.
Where can people find out more about your work, what you do, see the process? Like I follow you, so I see what you're doing constantly. And I know you're shadow banned as fuck. They have to write your whole name just like they have to do fucking write Manifesto Radio Podcast to find me. So where can people find you?
So Burkett Customs on Instagram, Burkett Customs. Burkett Family Custom Knives on Facebook, or like if you just want to watch me talk shit, Dustin Hill is verified on Facebook, or BurkettCustoms.com is a good way, or DarkAllianceFirearms.com. You can look up Jeremy's amazing work. Deplorable.com and Stormbreaker.com are both Mariano's and then William Tillery's. So those are guys that I primarily work with. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I think when somebody buys something from you or gets something from you, I think it like I don't know, like for me, it's rare that I buy something off an artisan or somebody that makes something, and it's usually somebody like, oh, this motherfucker, look at all the shit he puts into it. And again, I buy things that I carry, so and I'm gonna use my shit. So thank you for coming on and like providing some insights into that, and also what just goes into these guns, man. I really appreciate.
Thanks for having me, Ed. That's pretty awesome.
No worries. And now we're off to get tacos. We have
I'm
Avi
excited.
here, who was he had a birthday recently. So happy birthday to Avi.
Happy birthday, man.
And he's gonna recommend. He just recommended some. We're going to Las Almaderas. So like, I'll take some videos and pictures. You'll get to see that. This is one of the perks for coming down for the podcast.
Awesome. That's the best perk.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming down.
Thanks, Ed.
God bless America.